just a bloke in a bar.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another episode of Bloke in a Bar, brought to you by Bloke Beer. Make sure to grab a case of this beautiful mid-strength or the OG full strength. The OG full strength is in every single bottle-o, Celebrations, Porter's Liquor, IJ Plus Liquor in New South Wales and ACT. Or you can go to our website, go to blokeinbar.com. Store locator's there. Plus, the Bloke Midi is in every single Liquor Legends in Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria and ACT. Make sure to grab a case of beer. Also, Bloke hoodies are dropping Wednesday, 6 p.m, limited amount. Plus, on top of that, Bloke beanies. We've got the brown colour, we've got the red colour. Make sure to grab some. Bloke tan hoodies, tops and bottoms. So the trackies and the hoodies, $79.95 for the top, $49.95 for the bottom. If you grab both, it is free shipping. Also, just a quick, not really an announcement, but we are considering putting ads on the potty. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to put like a million ads on the potty or whatever, but basically, long story short, the beer, so our beer is like $59.95. It should be sold at that. Some people sell it more, some people less, but I got a tough decision of whether we, most independent breweries, not the big dogs, independent breweries, they're priced at around $70 and $80. And so like when I was making the beer, I was like, I know that the punters that listen to this podcast, they don't want to spend $70, $80 for a beer. The problem with that is that there's really no profit when you're that aggressively priced. And so other beers that are priced around that, like, your Great Northerns around the $54 or $50 or whatever, they're owned by huge corporations. So they produce at scale and they can afford to make smaller margin on more amounts. Us as a growing business, obviously, we can't afford to do that because we're not multi-billion-dollar corporation. So we're just considering like, okay, the option is we price it at $70 and $80, which I just do not want to do, or instead of pricing it at $70 and $80, we chuck an ad here or there on the potty to supplement the fact that this is quite cheap for how much it costs us to make. So I hope there's no issue with the guys. It's just something that we probably have to do. Not have to do. It's something that I'm considering. And I just wanted to be open and upfront with you. If we do throw an ad here or there on the potty, that is literally the reason. It's not because I want to, be greedy or anything like that. It's truly to keep the beer at a competitive price and make us grow. But with that all out of the way, the great Timmy is with me. Guru couldn't join us. Unfortunately, he's a bit crook. I don't think he's got the Rona, but he just wanted to play it safe. Staying at home today, so we thank Guru for that. Got Timmy. How you going, mate?
Good, mate. The old Curtis Rona starting to cause some absolute dramas again after a bit of a layoff. And I've come off 5 days of just deep, dark mourning in the blackest corner of my apartment. Honestly, it's been grim. So I'm so glad the podcast is sort of 4 or 5 days after the game, because if it was Thursday morning, I'd have been sacked within about half an hour of the podcast, just blowing up. But, mate, fortunately, the Raiders are now officially the second best team in the competition, having towed up Melbourne. I'm back up and I'm ready to go.
Matty, we've got the great Matty, the water boy here. How you going, brother?
What's going on? I'm kind of in a similar boat to Timmy. That Thursday was tough, flying up to Brizzy and watching you and Cam Smith do your thing in the SEN studios. As insightful as it was, I must admit. But yeah, it was a tough weekend, and it made it worse at South for the fucking last game. Had to sit through 7 other games to wait for a team that I like to actually try and win. But yeah, I mean, I'm still very disappointed. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. It was good stuff, boys. Real good stuff. Queensland get the W. Talk about a famous win against all odds. It's Queensland's bread and butter. It really is. It's like just make us the biggest underdog you can. Because I heard on the grapevine that New South Wales were paying $1.30 close to kickoff. $1.30, and they hadn't won a series winner since 2005. And we all know who was a part of 2005. Some would say the greatest rugby league player of all time, Andrew Johns, was the reason why you got that win. Is it, as a New South Welshman, when you see it get down to $1.30, are you going, boys, come on, can we just with the brakes a bit?
Matty, firstly, if you want to stage a walkout, I'll follow.
I'm happy to go.
we said this before the game, that the odds were so ludicrous, and it happens every year.
Yeah.
We spoke about it during the 8-year dynasty of Queensland, where there were games where the Blues were favourites based on what? I don't know, like what the bookies, who it's so important for them to get it right for all their margins and whatnot. It just seems to be a media beat up every year that Queensland are underdogs and they have their injuries or illnesses going in. The Blues always start as our favourites. So when I saw that lead into the game, I thought it means nothing. Hopefully it doesn't go to anyone's heads, which it wouldn't. The Blues players aren't looking at that crap.
No.
Every series, we're favourites. Why?
It's really interesting. And it's like for the life of me, it's like when you think about like where does it come from? Because it's never from the players. Like I've never seen a time where I've looked at a New South Wales player before a series and gone, oh, they're a bit too cocky at the moment. Like it never, you know what I mean? It's that outside noise.
I'll tell you what I think a lot of it boils down to. Bookies, sports betting companies, it's so data driven. They have their figures, they have their lines, all that sort of stuff that goes into setting these odds. And you know, we talk about Origins being a different ball game where data effectively means nothing when they step out of there. A team that's underdogs, you know, might on paper be coming off the fact that the Blues had a massive winning game too. Last year we had a few big wins and the bookies are probably going, all right, you know, they're clearly a side with more ability. But when they step out there, it's almost a 50-50 contest no matter who's out there. We've seen that in 2 of the last 3 years. So I think a lot of it comes down to that.
Matty, what do you reckon it is?
It's definitely the outside noise. And I haven't said on this show last week that, like, I brought up the $1.35 thing and it obviously went into $1.30 and that it has Queensland written ambush all over it. Now, I said that, but, like, I still thought we'd win, right? I still was pretty fucking confident. And I don't know. Like, I knew we weren't $1.35 favourites. But, like, how many times? Like, surely this is it now. This is it. Because this happened 2 times in the last 3 years. And it was probably worse 2 years ago because like this Queensland team's better now, let's be real. But like seriously, if this happens again next year, we're just gonna be like, what the fuck? Because people have short memories. And also it's not Queensland won game 1 in our backyard.
Yeah.
Like, and it was the exact same team.
And there were mitigating reasons game 2. We had a sin bin. You know what I mean? Before the sin bin, it was a tight as matter of fact, we were winning before the sin bin, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and it was one half of footy which we dominated and we got momentum and blah blah blah. Like fucking outrageous.
Yeah, it's. I would say though, I think, and I haven't seen much narrative around this, but I actually think, and I kind of alluded to it before the game, is that a lot of people are like, oh, Munster's out, like what an underdog victory. I think like, hey, let's remember, he's had Latrell and Tom Trbojevic out. Like the outs were probably even when you think about it. Like now we all probably agree on paper New South Wales depth is substantial. But the team, like, running out, was there really that much... Like, losing Munster is massive for Queensland. There's no denying that. But when you go, well, so is losing Latrell and Tom Trbojevic. They're both basically a player of the series last year. This series probably looks very differently if both players are playing. So I think that New South Wales fans that are feeling a bit like, oh, fucking hell, they lost Munster and they still won. That's bullshit. It's like, no, let's hang on a second here. You've lost Latrell and Tommy for the whole series. The whole series.
And not only that, our like B players, let's say, played worse than Queensland's B players. Like Tommy Dearden came in and fucking killed it, right? So just on that fact alone, Queensland deserved the win.
You look at Queensland, like Kalen Ponga, one of the best fullbacks in the game, freak, which a lot of us knew that really cemented it on Wednesday night. Harry Grant is the best hooker in the NRL, in my opinion. Ben Hunt is an absolute star. Dalic Evans, one of the best halfbacks in the game. Like, they're still littered with stars.
Yeah.
So, and I'm with Matty when I say all that about the ridiculous odds. I was also pretty confident. I thought the Blues should be favourites, but yeah, like $1.30, that's absurd.
Insane. I just, it's just surprising. I don't get it, especially when you consider the fact that we still had Val Holmes, Dane Gagai, DCE, Kalen Ponga. You know what I mean? Like this is Harry Grant, Benny Hunt, Josh Papali'i. Like this is a fucking good.
I wonder what the odds would have been if it was at a core stadium. Because $1.30 at fucking at Suncorp, we might have been $1.03. Seriously.
Yeah, crazy stuff. But I mean, look, the positive is what a game. What an absolutely incredible game. Easy for me to say we won, but I swear to God, at halftime, I was sitting there going, even if we lose this has been absolutely amazing. It had every single thing that you could ever want in a rugby league game. Had a bit of had a bit of a fight, had the drama, had controversy, had players stepping up that, you know, it had the narrative of the rookie and Dearden, it had the narrative of Hunt looking for redemption. It had DCE finally getting his own story in the Origin arena. I feel like DCE, for me personally anyway, I've kind of like, he's never really stepped out of the shadow of the last generation. And through no fault of his own, he just hasn't had the opportunity to write his own origin story. Whereas I feel like the victory last Wednesday just put a full stop in DCE's, even if he is to never play again, which he will, obviously, he'll be back next year. But it goes, no, DCE has had his own time now. His time was through almost a rebuilding phase, and he had the famous victory with the worst side in 40 years or whatever, and now he's had another incredible victory when odds were stacked against them. I love the fact that DCE finally gets to have his own narrative in Origin. Do you think that's a good take, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. And as deflating as the result was, it was one of the greatest games of rugby league that I've ever seen in my entire life. Unfortunately, the result as a Blues fan, but as I said, it had just about everything. And DCE, credit when due. I sit here and I give him a bit of a hard time. His defence most weeks on this podcast. He stepped up really well defensively. Granted, like the Blues hardly had the ball in Queensland's 20 for particularly the second half. Didn't have to make a lot of big tackles, but defensive was good, outstanding with ball in hand. He backed it up again in the NRL on the weekend. So you're right, these narratives of DCE not only doing it in 2020, but now doing it 2 years later with his back against the wall, tremendous. And then Benny Hunt, who's, me and Maddie spoke off air saying, the one thing that I could cop is that at least it was Benny Hunt running away at the end, because one of the game's great guys. If anyone deserves it, it's Benny Hunt.
Oh, man. Absolutely. Thoughts on the DCE thing?
I was just going to add to the DCE thing as well. Like, he's probably turned almost a country's worth of people. Like, he's probably kept his 7 jersey for the Kangaroos now. And whether or not Cleary's still a halfback, like, I think a lot of people would cop Cherry Evans now being the halfback at the end of the year, whereas 2 weeks ago I would have said no chance in this world.
Oh, for sure.
And also, one more thing, he kicked the Blues to death, which is what Cleary, like, that's Cleary's biggest asset. So he kind of outplayed Cleary. Like, Cleary was great. I thought Cleary was good, and the hate that he's getting is ridiculous. But I think Cherry Evans out-Clearied Cleary in Game 3.
You know what it was, though? It was just like purely experience. Like, that's what I reckon it was. The only difference between Cleary and DCE on Game 3 was the fact that DCE has been there so many times, he can identify, like, oh, I need to do something special. I need to start kicking on the second tackle and the third tackle and just turn these boys around. Because it became a point of, like, why would we just get bashed for 5 sets, make no meters? Let's give it to them and say, boys, you try and make some meters and we'll bash you. I would much rather be attacking in defence than getting attacked in attack. And I mean getting attacked in attack is mean, like, if I've got the ball and they're using their defence to attack me, that's way harder than being a part of 17 blokes shooting up trying to smash blokes. And I think DC identified that. I'm not sure whether Billy... Well, I know Cam Smith's a real fan of the early kick. Like, he really likes... Like, it's a big reason why Ben Hunt was selected in that 9 was because he has a kick out of dummy half, whereas Harry Grant doesn't really. He has a grubber, obviously. We saw the great try. The kicking game from DC, and it wasn't just the kicking game, it was identifying key moments to take that early kick, to just, yeah, all right, you lose a bit of field position, but getting those big boys turning around, taking hit-ups again. On top of all of that, if you notice... Like, it's just a master class by Billy Slater, because what do we notice every week with the Penny Panthers? Every single week, they let their outside backs do the running, and then in defence, they get their forwards to shoot up out of the line. And so what did Billy go? Well, okay, I'm going to make it so your outside backs don't have 2 to 3 or a minute to rest. I'm going to make it so that, all right, you get your outside backs in scoot, and then I kick it on the second or third tackle. Those same outside backs have got, what, 30 seconds to recover, all of a sudden, and also they've got to sprint back and get behind the ball. All of a sudden, that crazy oomph that they used to have coming out of their own end, it's no longer there, because they don't have that set structure of, all right, outside backs get in there, scoot for a whole set, forwards for five tackles, shoot out of the line. By that time, backs, you should be rested, you do your job again. Whereas, like, DCE just completely gutted the rhythm of that. You know, as an outside back, if you're taking scoot after scoot after scoot, like in 20, 30-second periods, plus running out to... Because I think about the range you have to cover as a winger if they're kicking early. So you go... Let's say you take the second scoot. you take the second scoot, you sprint out to your wing, and then all of a sudden, like they've kicked the ball, you've got 1 or 2 tackles, 3 at most, they're kicking the ball back again. You've got to sprint all the way back, take another scoot. Before you know it, you're going to be gassed. And so that Penrith, I don't know if it's Penrith specifically as in they invented it, I'm not sure. I've just noticed it more with Penrith where they almost get to a point where like their forwards don't run the ball out of trouble, which is a really smart tactic. Queensland just said, we'll just upset your rhythm and just make it so that your key way of getting out of trouble is almost halved because you're gassed. And we could see it by the end of the game. New South Wales could barely even get behind the ball. Like they literally, and it was just purely from Queensland communicating with each other going, boys, kick early, kick early. But yeah, so DCE, I'll be honest, DCE for me is a really good footballer. I thought he never took that next step for me into that like origin folklore. I think he's in there now. I really do. And you're right. Like I probably still would have Cleary just pipping him for the Australian jersey. But if you put DC in there, I would not argue against it. Whereas a few weeks ago, I think most of us would have been like, rah, Cleary's got to be the 7.
Yeah. So much to dissect from that. And just the first one quickly was on the Blues bat 3 and the way they turned them around. Obviously a lot easier said than done, but that's got to be the blueprint now for an NRL club trying to shake up Penrith because they're so unflappable. No one has any idea how to beat them. And I know it's only a handful of their players, but Toto ran for 136 metres. Tupu, one of the best yardage players in the competition, 160 metres, which doesn't sound that bad, but these are blokes who ran in for, I think, over 250 in game 2 and pretty similar in game 1. Yeah. Teddy, the exception because he's an absolute freak of nature. But their metres, their yardage was so far down. And as you said, they were just out on their feet. So maybe when you go back to club level, it's, all right, boys, couple of good runs in attack, kick early, turn them around, and just complete for all the reasons you just said. So very, very interesting take out of that one. And then you're right. I still would have Cleary as the Kangaroo 7, but as both of you said, like if DC does keep it now, as opposed to a week ago, you're not going, that's bullshit. It's like, all right,
I get it.
He stepped up. I get it.
In the biggest game of the year, he delivered. And he played against Cleary too. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like it was against someone else. I'm with you, though. I would still have Cleary, to be clear.
The one good thing, I mean, not the one good thing, like...
We've still got fucking 2 hours to go.
Yeah. Cleary and Munster together gets me going. That'll be fucking sick.
Yeah, for sure. What we'll do is we'll dip back and forth. So we'll go Queensland a bit, just so you can get a bit of ease up. We'll talk about Cleary's game. Look, I know there's going to be plenty of people go, oh, Denon, you're just you love Cleary and you're never going to see any wrong with him. Do I think Cleary played his best game ever? No, I don't. Do I think that it was Cleary's fault that New South Wales lost? No, I don't. Matter of fact, if you go back and look, every single one of New South Wales points, Cleary had something to do with. He ran the ball. He was the one that got the quick play of the ball for Saifidi to score, and then he kicked for Luai for the other points. So it's like, to say that he didn't have impact on the game is crazy in my opinion. Imagine if everyone else had that much impact on the game for New South Wales. You would have scored like fucking... And so, I get it. He's the half. He should be impacting the game. But to say that he was like shocking or terrible, I just disagree. Now the narrative roars at head again. Cleary, he's not a big game player. It's like, hang on a sec here. Come on. What was Joey doing when he was 24? Did Joey... Because like the only time Joey has ever won a series, I'm pretty sure, in Suncorp, was that 2005 series, correct?
Won a decider, yeah.
Won a decider at Suncorp, sorry.
Yeah,
it was 2005, correct?
Yeah.
So it's like even Joey took... He was what, 30 then? 31?
He would have been, about maybe a bit older.
Maybe even older.
Maybe a couple of years, yeah.
Maybe, whatever. He was 30 plus. Yeah. Cleary is 24 years old, and he lost a decider against a Queensland side that played incredibly by, 8 points? This narrative around Cleary, it's just... What lost New South Wales the game, in my opinion, and again, to be really clear, yes, there were decisions Cleary made. Like, for example... I do believe Cleary could have identified, oh shit, I need to start kicking early and trust that we will outmuscle them in defence. And he'll learn that from going forward. So, yeah, there definitely could have been decisions. And also the chip kick that Ben Hunt charged down, that's a Cleary error. Like, even though, he was trying something, he needed points, it still is a Cleary error. I'm not going to sit here and say that it was the best game he ever played. What killed New South Wales is in the first half, the errors were 5-2 to New South Wales. That Queensland had 5 errors. New South Wales had 2 errors. I'm pretty sure, if I recall correctly. In the second half, New South Wales had 8 errors. That is what killed New South Wales. Is the 8 errors.
And our 8 errors, I think 5 of them were inside our own 20.
Yes.
And another one was inside our own half. And in the second half, when we finally got out of trouble, Ben Hunt kicked a 40-20.
Yeah.
So that's what cost us the game. Those stupid errors.
And you're actually, again, very easy for me as a Queenslander to say this, you actually defended incredibly.
Oh, yeah.
You should have been completely out of the match with 20 minutes to go. That's how much ball we had on your line and how much you defended. I think there was a period it was like fucking 6 or 7 sets. It was crazy. And so I just, to lump the blame on Cleary when you had 8 errors in the second half, I think is insanity. Yes, he's going to learn from this. Yes, DC's experience outmaneuvered Cleary. There's no denying that. I'm not like trying to, I'm a Queenslander. I should be ripping into Cleary going, yeah, fuck that, like whatever. But in reality, I thought Cleary was, I'd probably give him a game, probably a 6 or a 7. He wasn't shocking at all. I thought his first half was really, really good. But it was the errors that killed New South Wales. It absolutely was not the halves. Thoughts, Timmy?
Yeah, well, exactly the same. The first half of the game, when Jacob Saifiti scored that try, the Blues pack were tearing through the Maroons. Yes. I was so confident. I was like, Blues could be 13 plus here. When you scored that in true Queensland fashion, that try in half-time, the Harry Grant kick, I just thought, turning point. But as far as how the footy had played out and the momentum through the middle, I was very confident. At that time, Cleary doing a fine job, no one would argue. Went into the second half, Queensland do what Queensland do. And they've done it for decades. They turned it into a scrap and they just said, kicked early, turned us around. They got that narrow lead and they just did not relent. You mentioned the errors. They didn't give up errors. They didn't miss tackles and they just did not give the Blues an opportunity. And how this ties back to Cleary is that he didn't have a chance to do anything with ball in hand. So, I'd like to see the tackled in opposition half or tackled in opposition 20 stat for the second half of the game because the Blues were not there. As Maddie mentioned, the only time they sort of half got a bit of a look in, Benny Hunt kicked a 40-20 and just turned it around on us again. So Cleary didn't have a chance to do anything with ball in hand in the second half. And when we made a stack of errors, what's he meant to do? And I don't want to digress too far from the argument because, I want to defend Nathan Cleary in that regard. But the one thing I will say more and more about when people talk Joey Johns v Nathan Cleary and these sorts of things, one thing Joey had, an ability that I don't know if I've seen in many other players ever, particularly halves, is when he's playing behind a beaten pack and on the back foot, Joey could pull things out of his arse with ball in hand, whether it was taking on the line or a chip chase, recovery, whatever, and just get his side back on the front foot with a bit of brilliance. Cleary, probably not to the same degree, and they're different players in a lot of regards.
Honestly, Joey is more closer to Munster.
Yeah,
really.
In that
aspect.
Whereas Cleary is just this meticulous, game organiser, gets his side around the park, incredible kicking game. So you don't necessarily expect Cleary to do that, but basically he didn't have a chance to do anything in that second half. He had literally every point you scored, he either kicked it, as in the conversion, or he set it up with a try assist or whatever. So I understand, for sure, there could have been, I think that if Cleary was to play that same game in 5 years' time, I bet you he makes decisions that help relieve that pressure. But the Cleary at 24 years old that hasn't been in that position before, really, the last 3 years, Penrith have just dominated. They have never felt the pressure of a team going, no, you're not the one that's going to put us on our line and fucking towel us up. We're going to put you on your line and see how you respond. And unfortunately, and Critter has come out and said, that's on me. I shouldn't have thrown that offload. So there's one. Talakai, unfortunately, he's a rookie. There was a couple errors there. Junior Paulo, unfortunately, there was one error there. Saifiti, another area there.
And Luai throwing the ball out. All of that has nothing to do with Cleary. And so I think, although you absolutely can look at parts of Cleary's game, I don't think he's the reason. I think if you want to find out and find the real reason why you lost, it's not at Cleary's door. Yes, Freddie can sit him down and be like, mate, next time we're in this position here,
let's have a set. We used to, at the Broncos, we used to call it a red set. And that was basically, we're kicking early and the whole line needs to be ready for that kick and we're going to jam you in defence. And so they may already have this call, but I think personally, I believe we may have seen a real shift in the way the game's played. I think we're going to see the early kick come back in after seeing that. I think because the 6 again rule has been so dominant, and this is what Cam Smith said, he said because 6 again rule is so changed way of played, teams haven't needed to kick early because you just get a 6 again and you keep rolling down the field. And so the reason why they introduced it is partly because it's still so powerful. That early kick, turn around, trust your defence, complete at a high percentage. It's so hard to beat. Just on the Cleary thing, what do you think, Matty?
Yeah, as I said before, like there was parts in that second half where he was kicking from inside his own 20. Like we had no ball. He didn't have a chance. And, there's not many halfbacks in the game at the moment that could do a better job. Like, yes, maybe he didn't have his best game, but like he didn't have a chance to. Like it's on the other players to get us out of trouble, and then Cleary will work his magic.
Well, Cleary in this series had the most try involvements by like 3 or 4. He ran for 60 more metres on average than DCE. Statistically, he was the best player of the series.
He ran for 148 metres from 20 runs in game 3. Like for a halfback, it's mental.
That's huge. Like this is his stats from game 3: a try assist, 148 metres run. So he actually ran for like the 3rd most metres in his team. He kicked for 381 metres. He had 4 tackle breaks, 22 tackles, and only 3 missed. Pretty good in Origin. Really good, actually, when you look at some of the other misses. And he had 16 kicks. He had 4 one-on-one tackles. And 4 one-on-one tackles in Origin is a tough gig on the edge there.
More run meters than Brian Toto.
More run meters, yeah. And so you're telling me that this guy had a bad game? Yeah. I don't know about that.
I left the pub not even thinking about Cleary. Yep. I was thinking about all the errors we made and how frustrating that must have been for everyone, and how that cost us the game. I didn't even consider Cleary. Yeah. And it's the annoying thing is, like, he was the world's best player after game 2. He was the world's biggest villain after game 1. Like,
there were some people saying that his game 2 was as good as Joey 2005. That was crazy talk. That was crazy talk. I love Cleary, but that's crazy talk. This is where the game was won or lost, honestly. Daly Cherry Evans, 642 kicking metres. Cleary, 381. So if you want to make the argument, okay, Cleary could have made the decisions that DCE made. Yep, I'll be with you there. I'll say, yep, 100%. DCE made better decisions with his kicking game. I'll 100% agree with you on that.
Just to add on to your point, the kicking meters were actually the same in the first half too. It was the second half where Queensland kicked pretty much.
So that's clearly a message from Billy going, boys, just boot the fucking thing down the field, and we'll just, because when you look at when you watch the Queensland forward pack, like, they were relentless in defence. Like, they were relentless every single time they were coming up. They looked very similar to Penrith versus Rabbitohs in the grand final. Like, that's how ruthless they were, just coming off their line. So look, Cleary, yep, he was absolutely outplayed by DC in this game specifically. No denying that. But he wasn't the reason why New South Wales lost, in my opinion. Now, the reasons why New South Wales lost. Do you think that there were selections made that affected the outcome of this series, Timmy, by New South Wales?
And this is the part of sort of this gig that I hate, because I hate bashing people, but you're here to talk footy and give your honest opinions. And I said all series and again before game 3 that Stephen Crichton should have been picked ahead of Jack Whiten. Unfortunately, Stephen Crichton didn't have a great game for the Blues, and it's not like it's a hindsight thing. There were signs in game 1, game 2 that he wasn't, not up to this level, because he will be, but he hasn't at this stage.
We were all a bit like, okay, he's solid, but there's been a few errors here or there.
Even in the big win in game 2, he had errors in his game. So then they dropped our best player on the field in game 1 for him, who was just Jack White, and he's just made for that. When it turned into that second half scrap, blokes out on their feet, that's where you want Jack White. And unfortunately, that had a really, really big impact on this game.
I will say, I thought Crichton, because it was such a big moment, and we've seen him step up in big moments, I thought he was going to do it again in game 3. I wasn't. If you had have put Whiten and Burton in the centres, I probably would have been more okay with that. But when Crichton and Burton was named, I was like, yeah, you know what? I can agree with that. Hindsight, I think you were much more vocal in you saying you felt Whiten should have been there. I felt Whiten should have been on the bench for Talakai. I think we spoke about that quite a bit. Guru felt Talakai probably should be there due to his size. What's crazy is didn't Talakai end up going and playing the centres event? Like, did he when he came on, or was it wide running forward?
I thought
definitely on an edge, wasn't he?
Oh, he was on that left channel at some point. I don't know exactly what position.
He's just wide running forward. Trying to think out.
Because he was taking scoots out of a corner after a kick. Anyway, I don't think size was the issue. I actually think the game would have suited Whiten's smaller body.
Also, Jack's a beast.
He's a fucking beast. Yeah, so I was okay with the Crichton selection, and I actually thought Crichton would do something, would have a big moment because he'd had throughout the whole final series, he had big moment after big moment after big moment. So I was definitely wrong on that call. Because unfortunately, and I'm like you, I hate this part because I don't like bagging players that go out and have a crack. But Critter didn't have the best game. Talakai unfortunately had a couple errors. Tupou was surprisingly, I haven't seen a game like that from Tupou in honestly a few years, unfortunately.
On Seifert, the frustrating thing about him is he had the best impact when he first came on. I think he made 2 really good tackles. The second one was a massive effort and it forced a Queensland error. He's here, he's in his element, and then it just went downhill. But he started so well.
He started really, really well. Thoughts on selections? Did they play a factor in the loss game 3?
So before the game, I was pretty much happy with all the selections. I thought we won game 2 convincingly. No one deserved to lose their spot. I thought, maybe Whiten possibly deserved to be in the team somewhere, but they were like, why change a winning formula? And I agreed with this Crichton thing. I was the exact same. I thought he probably didn't have the greatest start to the series in game 1 and 2, but he's been in, he won a grand final for Penrith. He's been there before.
At Suncorp.
At Suncorp against South, as I very much know. Look, hindsight's beautiful, and I think I'm not going to sit here and say, Freddie got it wrong, because I agreed with what Freddie said. Looking after the game, I think that Whiten will be in the team next year at number 14 or wherever he plays. I think that's certain. But I can't. I'm not being true to myself if I sit here and say Freddie got it wrong, because I truly agreed with the selections at the time.
Yeah, I'm the same outside of the Whiten. I'm pretty sure, if I recall correctly, I was pretty strong on Whiten on the bench.
Yes, you were.
But
it was your idea. I never even considered it until you said it.
I just felt like, the minutes that Talakai had last game, Talakai, fair play to him. He definitely earned the jersey. He's played really good this year. But I just thought he was only brought in because Whiten was sick. So going to Talakai and saying, mate, Whiten's back, unfortunately you're going to lose your spot. Talakai, I'm sure, would have understood. He'd been like, I was only in here because Whiten was sick. That was the selection that baffled me, because Freddie's been so loyal to Whiten, through everything. He's dropped all these other stalwarts of, Travojevic, Addo Carr, all these players that have been there for so many years. But Whiten has been the one true, Freddie sticks with Whiten, and Whiten has repaid Freddie with some great games of footy. The first year was, the second year was a bit scratchy, but his first game this year was outstanding. That's shocked me. That I just couldn't believe that. I mean, I was going as far to say that they were wool pulling us with Whiten at 18. Remember I said they were going to bring him to 17. I just couldn't see him out of the side.
How effective would Jack have been coming on in that second half, when everyone was out on their feet, and you get Jack, who's fit as a fiddle, got that footwork, you put him in that 13 role. Super aggressive. He was just tailor-made for it, as opposed to Seaver, who just a bigger body, another bloke who's getting gas there. Jack would have been an animal. Anyway. Yeah,
and look, it's easy to say hindsight, I agree with you there, Matty. It's easy for us to be, I guess, stronger in our positions, but I do feel like the Whiten on the bench one, I was pretty strong with that, and you've been really strong from the get-go about the Whiten thing. So I think we could probably chalk that up to an error selection, unfortunately. Look, again, guys, I hate doing this because it's like everyone that's there deserves to be there. They work their dick off, but we do have to give our opinion on the result of the game. Tupou, this is a tough one because he was so good game 1 and 2. So good. Game 3 rolls around. I think he had a substantial amount of errors, unfortunately. He had 2 errors, which is like in Origin.
And one was crucial.
Pretty crucial, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Tupou, where do you put it? Right or wrong decision for this? We'll just talk series.
Definitely not going to say wrong because from the get-go I wanted Josh Adokar ahead of Tupou, but he was tremendous in game 1. He was tremendous in game 2. He's one of the most reliable, safe wingers in the competition. His yardage is incredible. It wasn't his night. He made some errors, which was so uncharacteristic, and it didn't pay off. But I mean, what he did in games 1 and 2, you're not going to pick him for game 3 off the back of that. So it just wasn't Tupou's night.
What do you reckon, Matty?
I pretty much echo everything Timmy said. I was fine with it. He's there to make meters, and normally he's very safe, and he made an uncharacteristic error.
But considering the fact that he took Josh Adokar's spot, do you think that it's an error that Josh Adokar should have played the series? Can you see Josh Adokar, doing anything differently than Tupou would have done?
I think Tupou's yardage is so important, and when we spoke about how Cleary didn't really have an opportunity to impact that game, it goes for the whole Blues back line in that second half because they didn't have the ball in any attacking territory. So I don't really see what Josh Adokar does differently in that game.
Yeah, I think that the only thing Josh may have done differently in that game is probably the errors he probably may not have had because I haven't really seen Josh Adokar have a bad game in big games. But I think that to say that it was the wrong selection considering the whole series, I think that's wrong. I think he was so good game 1 and 2. Matter of fact, game 1 and 2, he proved Freddie right. That he was the difference. Like him and To'o, we looked at the stats for game 2 and their meters compared to Queensland wingers were like night and day. So I just thought it just wasn't his night, unfortunately. He just made some uncharacteristic errors. I do think, though, that a lot of positions are not safe next year. Like if Freddie is willing to swing the axe after a record win, imagine what he's willing to do after that loss. I don't think it was a wrong call at all. Although I probably would have gone with Adokar first, I think Tupou played good enough to say that it wasn't a mistake in the game 1 and 2.
And Tupou's been playing great for the Roosters for so many years.
Yeah.
It was more the shock factor. That, no one expected Josh Adokar to get dropped.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's unfortunate.
Yeah, tough. Now, thoughts on the rest of the side? Are we going to see mass changes? Are we going to see, the thing, and I spoke about this a few weeks ago, is the concern that I had with a lot of these ins and outs is what foundation is being built? If we don't know why someone's getting selected and what are the principles behind selections and all that kind of stuff, the concern I had was long term, how can you build anything long term if it's just people just rotating in and out of the team? And when I said that, then New South Wales came out game 2 and towed us up. And so people were like, well, some people, most people just understood his opinion, but some people were like, well, you're clearly wrong. He fucking made all those changes and they just towed him up. But then game 3 rolls around and it's like you lose a game where, very not easily could have won it, but could on paper had the team to win it. And so I worry now is Freddie is in this really tough position where if he sticks with this team, everyone's going to be off him. But if he makes a million changes, he's almost starting at square one again. What do you think happens next year selection-wise?
Well, there'll be forced changes in Latrell Mitchell and Tom Trbojevic.
Yep.
So from the get-go, he'll make those. They'll come into the back line. And all being fit, you look at the Blues back line next year, throwing them two in at centres, Jack White instead probably at 14 or something, it becomes unbelievable. I don't think he's sort of too far off the mark with the rest of the side. Appy proved his success coming in. He was really good in this one. I don't mean to sound like Gus Gould and sit there rapping good things that I said in the past because I say a lot of shit. But Angus Crichton not being picked from in game 1, I thought he was tremendous on Wednesday night. He was busting tackles. He had 3 offloads. I just thought he was a real handful for a bloke who was forced to come on off the bench and played something like 78 minutes when Cam Murray went off. Angus Crichton has to stay there. I think he's a gun.
I was surprised he was out of the team, honestly. I did not get that decision at all.
Still don't get why he wasn't. And maybe it was just an error for whatever reason by Freddie, which he effectively admitted to by picking him for game 2. But yeah, so I think the Sandals will change up there. Jack probably comes in for maybe a Seafer on the bench.
Is there a world where Cookie may not, has Appy stolen Cookie's spot?
That'll be the big one, won't it? I don't know. I don't know. There's a lot to play out in the next 12 months between next Origin, but possibly. I don't know.
I feel like there won't be 2 hookers next year though. Like for me, Jack Whiten's got to be 14. He's the perfect 14. We missed him in game 3.
Yeah, but then you've got a guy like Nico Hines where you're like, well, maybe you could have used that creative flair through the middle just to unlock something for New South Wales.
I think, and this is kind of left field, I think we kind of we have some great front rowers, great forwards, but I think a David Clemmer enforcer wouldn't have gone astray on Wednesday night. So just someone to just fucking stick it to him.
Would have he struggled a bit with the pace of the game though, you reckon?
I reckon he's playing like he used to play at the Dogs and at the start of his Knights career, and now he's got an offload in his game. I don't know the ins and outs enough to know if David Clemmer is will be good enough to play Origin. But just going off club form and what he's done in the past, I would have loved to see him there on Wednesday just to add a little bit of mongrel. Plus, because he's playing superbly. I think an enforcer like that would be good next year.
Yeah, really interesting. Jacob Saifidi, he was outstanding aside from that one error. So, and Junior Polo the same.
I was going to say, I was a little bit surprised, probably the way it played out, it wasn't too bad a move, but I was surprised to see Junior Bolo start the game because of how good he was. He turned game 2 when he came in off the bench.
It was massive.
And I was like, why change the thing that a lot of people don't understand with sort of front rowers, a lot of the time it doesn't really matter if they're starting off the bench because they'll still play the same amount of minutes. And he was so good off the bench in game 2. That being said, Jacob Saifidi had a great impact as well when he came off the bench, so maybe it didn't make a difference either way.
Now, interesting little pattern for New South Wales. So the series that you guys lost to the worst, Queensland, blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't New South Wales that said that, it was a journo, but that's just how we remember it. Cam Murray was injured in the first few minutes of game 1. And game 3 rolls around, Cam Murray injured in the first few minutes again, and you just don't get the win. It's the same for the Rabbitohs. I think his importance to any side that he's in is absolutely crazy. Because if there's one guy that could have kept up with the speed of the game, but also just given them a quick enough play the ball to give Cleary some momentum, just some momentum, it's literally Cam Murray. So I do believe New South Wales missed him massively on the edges. Massively on the edges.
When they were out on their feet in that second half, can you even, a fatigued Cam Murray, can you imagine trying to stop his footwork in through the middle of the ruck?
Mate, he would have been perfect.
God, we missed him.
Yeah. And you missed him in the series as well that he's lost. I mean, look at the job he did last year. He shut down anything that came his way. What do you reckon, matey?
Yeah, I mean, I can attest to this. He's so important to the Rabbitohs. There was a period last year where I think it got to around 18. He only lost 1 game all year. Every time South lost, he wasn't playing. His play the ball is just electric. He doesn't miss tackles. He's so effective with the ball. Always finds his front. Got that late footwork. He's just an unbelievable player. He's probably my favourite player in the whole comp. As soon as he went down, I think me collectively, along with the rest of the state, was just oh no, that's a huge loss. That's a huge loss, and it was.
He's the glue in a forward pack. He seriously is. Now, Freddie Fittler, there's been a bit of noise about pressure on his job. I got to strongly disagree with this. He is still 3-2 up in a series. I think people are not giving enough credit to how tough Origin is to win. I think we get so blinded by Queensland's dominance through that era that we just assume that's a kind of a normal thing. You know what I mean? This is the last 5 years. It's 3-2 to New South Wales. This is the normal way of things, win a couple. For example, I think before Queensland went on their long run, didn't New South Wales win 3 in a row and they were going for 4?
They were going for 4.
They were going for, sorry?
They were going for the 4th.
3 to 5.
They were going for 3?
That they'd won 3, and if they won in 06, it would have been 4.
It would have been 4. So think about the team that New South Wales had back then. You're talking Joey, Freddie, the lot. Bedsy, like
Minicello.
Probably the best New South Wales has looked in a couple of decades. And even that team couldn't get 4 in a row. And so I just think that people we're just being a bit, we're being a bit blinded by that 8 in a row by Queensland. That will never happen again. Or at least in our lifetimes, it'll never happen again. So I don't think there's any pressure on, I don't think there should be any pressure on Freddie. I think he's proven he can get the job done. All I do think is that maybe some tinkering needs to be done around selection processes and selection criteria as well, and maybe just getting a bit of a solid foundation as to who you select and all of that. Again, very easy for me to say in hindsight after a series loss. You only go back 12 months and you see there's a record series win, but I don't think there's any pressure on Freddie, and I think it's crazy, frankly, to be even talking about it. Thoughts, Timmy?
Yeah, look, I'd be happy to see Freddie go around again next year. He's proven enough in the last 4 or 5 years. That being said, I tend to disagree in the sense that I think there probably deserves to be a bit of chat around it. He's lost 2 series of the last 3. One that was effectively the unlosable series, and you talk about, being journo and media attention and all that, and not meaning too much. Like, we put those 2 teams together. The Blues had no right to lose that series, and we did. This series, we went into the game 3 as heavy favourites. Again, probably should have been closer than it was, odds-wise and all that sort of crap, but a game that I think most Blues fans thought we should be winning. So he's now lost 2 of the last 3, and all of a sudden, I think there needs to be chat around it, and just a lot of obscure selection decisions that some have been proven to be masterclasses, some that have been a little bit baffling. Look, happy to give him a game next year, but I don't think it's a case of being safe in the job.
Yeah, okay. What about you, Matty?
Yeah, look, and I'm biased. I'm never gonna diss Freddie because I used to work with him, but like, in my opinion, 2020 was worse. Like, maybe there was a couple of selections in 2020 that, the Blues coaching staff might have thought, okay, we got that wrong. We got out-coached here, blah, blah, blah. And yes, Queensland outplayed us in game 3. But I don't want to sound harsh, but if your players are making 5 errors inside your 20, you're letting your coach down that picked you. Yeah. I feel like the players, and I hate to say it, but they let him down making errors like that. I don't think Freddie has Freddie's selections hasn't got nothing to do with that, I don't think. And that's why we lost the game and ultimately why we lost the series. So I wouldn't even consider Freddie to go again next year for sure, 100%.
Yeah, I think I definitely see your points. I see your points. I think that just what he's the tough thing with Freddie is, like, because he does see things that I don't see, it's really hard to get a gauge on, like, when you look at the foundation he has built for New South Wales, it's incredible. Like, the depth you guys have, a lot of it is owed to Freddie. And so you look at that and you go, mate, he's building things for the future. But then, as I said, when you look at some of the selections, you're like, it's so in and out. I just don't know what direction he's going. I still think that there should be no pressure on him now. I think if he is to come out and lose next year's series handedly, then yeah, there should be pressure. But I don't think the pressure should be there yet. I really, really don't. I think he's done enough to, like, obviously, the 2020 was a disaster for New South Wales. There is no denying that. That was a disaster for New South Wales. This year, I think people are underestimating the fact that the improvement of the Queensland sides has been so dramatic in such a short amount of time that our team is, like, I think that the team last year was, not the best Queensland team we've ever put out, but the team this year, going into the series, I genuinely believed it was 50-50. And so that's where I'm like, I think some people aren't giving enough credit to the fact that Queensland squad is really, really fucking good now. And it's happened quickly. The scary thing for New South Wales is, and I'm not talking dynasties or none of that crap. The scary thing is, though, is that, like, let's say this does pay off for Queensland. Billy Slater made some huge, crucial selections with young players. They've now got a whole series under their belt. If they keep progressing and growing the way we know Billy will want them to, that's a tough team to beat over the next few years. A really, really tough team. So, no, I definitely see your point. I definitely see your point, Timmy.
How good would it be? And you spoke about Freddie and his selections and how they seem obscure, but, he has his plan, he has his reasons. I'd love to have him sitting right here and just grill and just find out his thinking behind
100%.
a lot of them. It'd be so intriguing. And that's,
Yeah.
you're right, you go, oh, it doesn't make sort of sense to us, but Freddie's a smart man. He obviously knows his footy inside out, a bit of a footy genius. So you'd love to hear the reasoning behind a lot of them, which we didn't hear a lot probably about in the media.
Yeah, and it's hard because like Freddie can't come out give his reasons because that might give away game tactics and all of that kind of stuff. But you're right. If he was here, I'm sure he'd say the reason. We would go, oh, that totally makes sense. Like for example, a perfect example of that was, remember how we're all sitting here going, Jordan McLean, like he's been playing good, but I don't know whether it's better than RCG. And then we looked at his stats and we're like, oh, he's one of the best defensive front rows in the game. And then I think it was like within 24 hours, Freddie came out and said, when you look at Jordan McLean's stats, I'm not saying Freddie listens to this podcast, I'm saying he just came out and said it. When you look at McLean's stats, he's actually like the leader in certain ones that we're looking for. And so the method to that madness was his defensive capabilities. He wanted Jake Trbojevic and McLean to be just real strong defenders and he can get all the attacking stuff elsewhere. So, really interesting time for New South Wales. Is there anything else New South Wales that you wanted to talk about?
No, I think we probably covered all the main stuff. The other thing I wanted to touch on extremely briefly, because it's not going much into depth, but James Tedesco is just a freak. Like 290 metres again.
Crazy.
He ran for close to a kilometre across the 3 games. What a freak.
Average 280 metres and 8.5 tackle breaks a game in the series.
Yeah. Well, remember back if you ran for 250 to 300 metres back in the day in an NRL game, it was immense.
Yep.
Teddy's basically averaged 300 for 3 Origin games in a row in a losing team.
In a losing series.
Yeah.
Is it, have we put to bed, I think, was it after game 2 or was it after game 1? I don't know, but I've been speaking about it for a little bit. Like, is Teddy cemented one of the greatest fullbacks of all time cemented?
Oh, yeah.
Do you reckon?
Oh, 100%. He's New South best fullback I can remember for the Blues, by far.
Like, the only other one I can think of was like, so you got Brett Mullen and Minicello?
I don't remember Brett Mullins, but
I don't remember him either. He played fullback for New South Wales, pretty sure. Or was he on the Sting?
It was for the Blues, I'm not sure he was fullback or Sting, but yeah, plenty of.
But for the Raiders, he played fullback?
Yeah.
But I saw Minicello was incredible, but I don't know if he had this long, like, because he was injured. I think it would be a different story. If Minicello never got injured, I wonder what he would have done in his career because he was amazing. But I just think that, like, the longevity of Tedesco and the consistently 9 out of 10 games is absolutely incredible. He's just...
Timmy Brasher was that era. Brett Mullins was on the wing.
On the Sting.
Yeah.
The pick and swing.
Teddy's like at that level where he's 9 out of 10 every game that if he doesn't do anything exceptional in terms of scoring tries or maybe setting them up, it's kind of like, pretty quiet game for Teddy, running 290 metres and he only had 11 tackle breaks and
it's amazing.
And just how he cleaned up everything at the back. Like Queensland would, like especially Cherry Evans with his kicking game.
Yeah.
And if Teddy wasn't back there, we would have been in so much trouble.
If you didn't have Teddy, honestly, game 3, I honestly reckon the game, like, it probably wouldn't have been close. Like, that's how important he was, especially in the first half. Like, we had you under the pump. The first, 15, we come out with all this emotion. And then Teddy, every time we got the fucking ball, he made like a half break. And then and then the whole set is blown open because we can't catch back up again. And it all off the back of Teddy's running. Like, he's just so, so good. Every time he runs the ball, I'm just like, please, just tackle him.
10, 15 minutes to go. Blokes on their haunches, can't breathe. You're sitting there going, how are these blokes going to get through the game? Teddy's having 2 runs a set, busting 3 tackles each run, crabbing across field, go from side to side. It's like, how can your lungs do this?
He had 30 runs.
I got a stitch watching him.
Like 30 runs in a game 3 decider that was that quick. Fucking amazing. Seriously.
I've got one more thing about Blues just before we move on to Queensland. Do you reckon the number 6 jersey next year is going to be a 3-way battle between Luai, Whiten and Burton? Or do you reckon Luai's got it locked?
I know... I thought Luai was pretty good in the first half, at least. In the second half, he was pretty quiet, and that's when you need your gun ball runner to do something. And I understand the argument that people would say, look, Whiten would have tucked the ball under and fucking found a way. I'm not sure what the answer is to that. I really don't know because, that pairing of Cleary and Luai is so good because they play club together. But, does Burton offer more? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is to that. I actually thought Luai had one of his. I thought he was pretty good this series outside of like a couple errors.
Luai's first half in game 3, I actually at halftime said to my mates, best player on the field so far.
Yeah, I thought he was pretty good. Second half, again, the second half he wasn't the best with that throwing over the line, and he didn't impact the game. Yeah, I'm not sure.
I think as long as Nathan Cleary is the halfback, he's the 5'8", because their combination is so off tap, along with the stack of other Panthers players. If Cleary were to go down injured and miss games, well, then it becomes, do you pick Luai alongside whoever the half is to come in?
Yeah.
But I think if Cleary's fit, you just stick to the combination.
You stick to the combo. Don't risk breaking it up. Yeah. Look, it's a really interesting one. I'm not sure what the answer is. And look, everything we said with Cleary in regards to errors, I know he threw the ball over the line, but outside of that, like, it's the same for Luai. Like, what's Luai supposed to do if you're making 5 errors on your line? Like, that is doesn't matter what you want to look at, what beat the New South Wales side was those errors. There's just no denying that. I'm happy to hear other opinions about it for sure. And I'm happy to be convinced wrong if I'm wrong, but I personally believe that there was the errors, man. The errors is what killed you. Like, if you didn't make those errors, would have been very hard for Queensland to put that much pressure on them on their line. Would have been really, really hard. So, yeah, I'm not sure. I think, look, as long as Cleary is the 7, I think you pick Luai. I thought he was great in the first half. I thought he was actually really good game 2 as well. I think you keep the combination together, as well as Appy, because like if it seems like Appy has squeezed that, like taken that spot. So then you've got the 6, 7. And 9 all playing together. So, yeah, interesting times for the Blues. Interesting times. Now on to the Queenslanders. He's aren't allowed to walk out.
Fuck.
He's aren't allowed to walk out. Kalen Ponga. Kalen Ponga arrives. I'm so happy for that bloke. The amount of shit he gets, and even in the game, everyone kept saying, "Oh, why can't you do this for Newcastle?" It's like, bro, a bloke can only do so much with what's around him. When Kalen Ponga has high quality players around him, he can deliver. And so, like, there are like a couple of mates that were saying, Kalen hasn't really delivered in Origin. I disagree. I feel like every game Kalen has played, he's killed it at Origin. He's just been injured for a few Origins. That's all. That's the only difference. Like, even I think it was a couple of years ago, going in, like he had like 2 or 3 try assists with some incredible cutout balls.
I'll list them for you because I can remember him pretty vividly. Game 2, 2018, he debuted off the bench. Joey called it the best debut of all time. Game 2019, game 1 was up in Queensland. He set up 2 tries with 2 cutout passes on other sides of the field. Game 2 in Perth, no one from Queensland played good. He missed the 2020 series. And then he pretty much missed the 2021 series as well. He just played game 3, which Queensland won. And then it's been this year.
Yeah.
And he was, if he got the player of the series, I actually thought he was going to get it. I wouldn't have been surprised.
I did too.
I had Paddy, from game 1 to 2, I had Paddy. So Paddy was our best player, or him and Reece Cotter. Reece Cotter? Ruben Cotter. I was like, that doesn't sound right. Ruben Cotter was not him and Paddy for game 1. Game 2, it was Paddy and Kalen. And then game 3, I was like, fuck, Kalen has absolutely killed it. I think he may have picked Paddy. But then I went and looked at Paddy's stats. You want to hear fucking Paddy Carrigan's stats? The guy's a monster. 20 runs, 130 metres, 50 post contact, 2 tackle breaks, 3 offloads, 47 tackles.
Fuck.
Yeah.
So I thought Paddy was good game 3, but I hadn't looked at his stats yet. So just watching the game, I was like, yeah, Kalen. But then when I saw his stats, I was like, oh, I can understand why Paddy got man of the series. But the 3 people I had for man of the series was Kalen, Paddy, and Tedesco. That's the 3 that I was like, I think have really dominated for 3 games. But Kalen Ponga, like, I'm just so happy for him because finally there's the line in the sand of like, oh no, he is that superstar talent we all thought he was going to be coming through. I think that the other games, while really good, this game that he played, he was by far the best player on the field. Like, by far. The amount, like, it was almost like he finally believed in his ability to a degree. And it's really interesting because Billy said something after the game. He said, I just kept telling Kalen legs first. And I was like, legs first? What does that mean? But what he meant by legs first was use your footwork and your speed first. The ball playing will come. You're a natural ball player. You don't need to make that space. The space will arrive and you'll know when to execute naturally because you're naturally like that. So always use your feet first. And it just shows you the master that Billy is. You look at Pappenhausen, you look at Scott Drinkwater, you look at Jerome Hughes. Kalen Ponga takes that next step and absolutely dominates a decider. He was amazing. I'm stoked for him. It puts to bed all the nonsense about being overrated, in my opinion. Now, there are still going to be some Newey Knights fans out there that are going to say he's overrated at club, but to deliver like that in a Game 3 of an Origin proves that he is the superstar we all thought he was. Thoughts, Timmy?
Yeah, it was unbelievable, wasn't he? And I've always been an unabashed Kalen Ponga fanboy as well. Just ever since the bloke debuted in the NRL, he mesmerised me how good he is, and he obviously stepped up, and this was a very making of KP, because I think probably the criticism was not that he hasn't stepped up on the big stage. He's been tremendous for Queensland time after time, as you boys said, but maybe in the biggest of games, and the Knights haven't played a lot of finals footy. But and I sat there with a couple of Knights fans watching the decider, and they're sort of saying, oh, where is this form at club level, and why doesn't he do that? Firstly, very harsh, because he does it week in, week out at the Knights, but to this level is probably where the criticism comes. I don't think so much that he's got the stars around him at Queensland level. I think it's the speed of the game, because the speed of the game is so relentless. It just brings Kalen Ponga into it to another level because it's so fast-paced. There's retreating defences, and you can't stop KP when you're retreating defence and the game's going at that speed. At NRL level, particularly if the Knights, say, forward pack's getting dominated a little bit and the game's slower down, it just gives defensive sides time to position themselves around KP, to double team, that sort of stuff. At Origin level, he gets his one-on-ones because of the speed of the game. You can't tackle him. Yeah. Freak.
Yeah. His power through his legs to break. Was it Talakai and Luai? Or who was it? Who did he break through and then stepped Tedesco? Just the power through the hips.
I mean, there was so many that he did. I can't even remember.
Well, the try that he scored.
Oh, that was Luai and
Talakai?
Oh, was it Talakai?
I'm pretty sure it was Talakai. Yeah, just the power through the hips, and then the footwork to step like that at the end to beat Tedesco. Like for Tedesco to not even be able to get the hands on him, because like he's so good at try saving Tedesco. Couldn't even get a hand on him. That's how good his footwork was.
Yeah, just amazing. 16 tackle breaks?
Yeah, 16 tackle breaks, 3 line breaks.
We could not tackle him.
It was fucking crazy. So good.
And he just always, like, every time he brought the ball back, he just always found his front. It was
so good. So happy for Kalen. Seriously, that was a moment that I feel like his career really needed. And I think he's going to go back to Newey Knights. I agree with you in the sense of like, yeah, the game's faster. But in my opinion, that comes down to Newey's forward pack just doesn't seem to have quick play. Like they don't get quick play the balls. They don't get on the front foot. You put him behind a Penrith forward pack. Imagine him behind a Penrith forward pack, the damage he'd be doing every single week.
It was Talakai. I just looked it up again.
Talakai did come on at centre then?
No, Talakai was playing inside. Talakai was the inside.
Oh, he was the inside tackler? Okay, so he must have been wide running forward then. Yeah, so incredible moment for Kalen. I mean, there were so many, like, Valentine Holmes, that play. Like, people, for example, having cracks at Nathan Cleary. Cleary tried everything. The dropout was that was the perfect dropout. It was the perfect dropout. 9 times out of 10, that goes out. Valentine Holmes somehow dives out and gets it back in. Like, that's a relieving... If he gets that, the game changes.
Does that not reflect how good the game was? That was one of the most absurd moments you'll see in a footy field in a big moment, and it's just like in the backstory of the Origin game, because there were so many other big things that happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Valentine Holmes, even the line, like even the way Holmes was running, like he was super explosive, just reminding everyone, like, this is why this kid is he's still only 26 years old. He's still only 26 years old. Got to speak about it though. Tommy Dearden. What a debut. What a debut. He was the lead kick chase runner every time. Every time there was a kick chase, it was him and DCE. Like, Dearden would be coming from the other side or DCE from the other side, and they'd both meet and tackle that bloke. And, like, that just puts so much pressure on the other team to get out of their own end. It's crazy. Dearden, I just can't believe how composed he looked. like the first chance he gets down in New South Wales end, he throws a cutout ball to Valentine Holmes on an unders line. They score.
And prior to that, quite early on in the game, I can't remember who the half was. I think it might have been Cleary, but did a perfect job. Like all your plan is as a half with your back rower outside you is to get them one-on-one with the half, and 9 times out of 10 they'll go through them because it's just way bigger bodies. Angus Crichton, one of the best line runners in the game, straight at Tommy Dearden and just chopped him. I was like, I thought he was in for all money. It was an incredible first moment in Origin, followed up by the try assist.
Yeah, that was a great tackle. There was a few tackles from Tommy Dearden that were really... Like, he made 29 tackles. 29 tackles in Origin game, so I only missed 3. And one of them was Tupou fucking bumping him. So really, you're looking at 2, because like him to tackle Tupou one-on-one, almost impossible.
I love the story how Slater, I think he knocked on his door and then apparently he started tearing up and said, I won't let the state down.
Mate, that's just like folklore there. Tommy Dearden. I did not think he had that in him. Like, I thought he was a good, solid defensive half.
I thought he was a wooden spoon halfback at the start of the year. Because I had the Cowboys coming last. I'm not saying I thought Tommy Dearden was bad. I'm just saying, like, that's where I had him in the Cowboys at the start of the year.
I had him lucky to be making the Cowboys side. That's I had him, honestly, in my mind, I had this, an incredibly talented young half that had been scarred by poor management at the Broncos and poor coaching. And he was going to take at least 2 to 3 years to get confidence back in his game to step up into the position we all knew he eventually could become. Instead, it's taken what? Goes to the Cowboys, struggles because he is scarred by how poorly the Broncos went for those 2 years. Then has one preseason, turns around, and he was amazing. Like, amazing.
Unfortunately, as a Blues fan, very likeable dude as well.
Yeah, yep, absolutely.
Don't lie that. I just want to say as well, so refreshing to see Billy Slater, a coach, come out and run out with the side that he names. There's all this speculation about just Dearden start, just Hunt start and all that. All 3 of those games, Billy's like, this is the team I've picked. This is what will be running out in the game. It's just like, it doesn't happen anymore. It just makes life so much easier for everyone.
Well, it's just, we spoke about this last week, or maybe, I think it was last week. And when you pick and stick like that, I think for many years, Queenslanders would say, we pick and stick, we're loyal. And a lot of fans would say, bro, you had immortals literally littered across the park. Very easy to pick and stick. But I think Billy's proven it this series. They really do pick and stick. Like, to bring Nanai onto the fucking starting side as a teenager in a decider outside Cherry Evans, who is like... I
was going to say, picking and sticking is one thing, but he actually promoted from within.
Yeah.
Which is even crazier.
Like, and promoted teenagers.
Yeah.
Not like veterans that have been around, or like teenagers onto the starting side. And I just think that the value that you get out of sitting down with a young teenager and saying, I am putting faith in you. Do not let me down. Like, I am going to put my neck out for you. I've got your back 100%, and I 100% believe in you. I think that you could argue was partly the difference. Now, obviously, I understand Freddie would have the same connection with his team. I'm not discounting that at all. But I am saying that, like, him picking and sticking, I think we saw the benefits of that. I think we saw the guys that he chose to pick and stick with have probably their best game of their life in Game 3. Nanai was amazing.
Further to that, a few of these blokes that were promoted within, such as Nanai to a starting team, struggled in Game 2. So Slater would have an out if you want to say, well, look, I'd love to, but they're young, they battled in Game 2, that's picked from outside the squad. Full faith in them, and they did the job.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. Like, even, it seems like an obvious choice now, but remember when Ben Hunt was named at 9 initially? Everyone was like, what the fuck? Harry Grant not starting? He stuck with that through the whole thing, and Benny Hunt may have played his way into a bloody Australian 9 jersey now. Honestly, I would pick him at 9, seriously.
Yeah,
and I think Appy, Damien Cook, Harry Grant are incredible. I just think Benny Hunt is just amazing. I think you put Harry Grant at 14 for Australia, but anyway, we'll get to that later in the year when the Australian team selected. Jeremiah Nanai in the first half was amazing. Some of the offloads that he threw were freaking crazy. Outside of that, so like we lost Selwyn Cobbo in the first couple of minutes, and Lindsay Collins, like key players, and we managed to hang on with. So what, we had 2 less interchanges, 2 less people on the bench. Matter of fact, the first half, again, Billy Slater's like coaching genius in his first few games. They only made 3 subs in the first half, and 2 of them were forced. And I think he did that knowing that he wanted to like backload his energy, because obviously if you only make 2 or 3 subs in the first half, then you've got a bunch towards the end when the game is getting tough to bring on fresh people. And I think we saw that with Queensland's line speed. I think we did see a lot of fresh bodies on the field. Like, for example, just before Ben Hunt's try, he came off the field for a few minutes and then went back on. If Benny Hunt is in his 75th minute, no break, I don't think he runs away and scores that try because he'd be gassed. He'd be gassed.
By the way, Tommy Gilbert played 78 minutes.
Yeah, he came on for when Lindsay Collins. So I think he came on when Lindsay Collins went off, didn't he?
I'll check, but I'll
he did.
Right.
He went off. Capewell went to centre, and he came on the edge.
On the edge.
Credit when due Capewell as well. When that happened early on, and I was so critical of Queensland not picking utility on the bench, an outside back, particularly utility,
Yep.
and it's like, if a back goes down, they're going to be in all sorts, because Capewell's going to have to go out there, and he was terrific. It was like, I was waiting for him to get caught out, but he did his job, and again, sort of proving the faith in Billy's selections, going with him being basically the utility back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gilbert came on when Cobbo went off.
Oh, okay, so Cobbo came off.
Gilbert came
goes
on.
into wide running forward. Kurt Capewell goes into...
Yeah, and then a minute later, Lindsay Collins gets knocked out and Tino comes on.
Tino comes on. And so oh, wow. So basically, for most of the game, they just had Harry Grant and Jai Arrow on the bench.
Yeah.
As in, holy
To start,
shit,
yeah.
2 blokes on the bench. Imagine the ability Slater, you're sitting in the coach's box and you're going, holy shit, I've got 70 minutes to go and I've got 2 blokes on the bench. Fuck. That's crazy. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Billy Slater. Incredible. Like, he has never coached before. Not even 15, 16 years. Matter of fact, I interviewed him on the captain's run a few weeks ago, and I was like, hey, Billy, is it like everything that you've dreamed of, coaching? And he was like, I didn't dream of coaching. I only did this because they rang me and my state needed me.
Oh, God.
That makes me furious.
Oh, yeah. It sucks.
So Billy Slater only took the job because Queensland needed him. And he's always loved that jersey, and he's willing to do, and the same with Smithy. Like, Smithy's cruisy as, and because their state needed him. Now, I was going to write a little article the next day, but I think, I had the show, so I couldn't. But honestly, I reckon Origin is back in the biggest way it's been back in a very long time. Like, I think that game has reignited so much hatred between the states that we haven't had in so many years. Like, we haven't had the 2 teams hate each other like this now. Like, are you telling me that game 1 next year, New South Wales aren't going to be playing on repeat what happened with Burton, Tino and Dane Gagai? And then you tell me that Queensland aren't going to be playing on repeat everything that was said about that situation? About it. Like, I honestly believe that the ratings for next year will probably be the best they've been in a very long time. That game 3 has brought the true essence of what Origin was about, where it's not... I feel like there was a period where it got, and maybe Queensland are responsible for this because they had that run, where it kind of got a bit... Like, yes, it was aggressive and angry, but the hatred was... Like, they knew each other. They were mates off the field. I actually think the players, genuinely disliked each other on the field game 3. Like, I genuinely felt that when I was watching it. Thoughts? Do you think it's the most Origins have been back in a long time?
Yeah, and that was the one, softening blow when I walked out from this game, being absolutely gutted. In the back of my mind, I was just sitting there going... This is the best advertisement for rugby league, and we're in this constant battle against other football codes in Australia, particularly rugby union, and we're throwing that out as one of the most watched TV events of the year in the country and internationally, and that's what we're throwing out.
Yeah.
The quality and the entertainment that brought was such a great advertisement for rugby league. And as you said, it ties back into just the passion in the game and how much they hated each other.
Yeah, I loved it. What do you reckon, Matty?
This could be recency bias, but I can't remember. I've been watching footy since the early 2000s when I was a kid, and I can't remember the 2 Origin teams being so equal. like not just equal, but both been so good as well. Because like, for example, besides 2020, that was a blip on the radar. The Blues were better. The Blues have been better the last 4 or 5 years.
Since Cam Smith retired, Blues have been better.
And that's what I was going to say. Then Cam Smith 2017, all the way back to 2006, Queensland dominated. And then before that, the Blues had their 3 in a row. Like, and I can't speak for earlier than that. But like now it's dead set 50-50.
Yeah.
Like if I look on Sportsbet now and it's not $1.90 each, well, it probably won't be because they're so dumb. But like it should be $1.90 each. Like it is so close, and because it's so close and no one really knows who's going to win, I think that makes it like so much more exciting. On top of what you said about hating each other, which is also true.
I genuinely felt the hatred out there. Oh. Like when even when that fight was broken up, they were still yapping at each other across the field. I haven't seen that in years. Like literally all the Queenslanders were ready to scrap and all of New South Wales were ready to scrap. I have not seen that in so long. Origin is back. You're right. And it's the one thing that we have that no other, like tell me how you could watch that. Even if you don't even like rugby league, you watch that 80 minutes football and don't tell me you're sitting there going, holy fuck, this is crazy. It had everything. Blokes knocking themselves out. Fucking punches being thrown. All that stuff.
On the odds next year, I'll give you a guess each. Blues, Queensland, what are the odds?
I bet the Blues are $1.80. Queensland $2.
Surely Blues can't be favourite. I mean, Latrell, Blues, $1.80.
Pretty close. Blues $1.70, Queensland $2.15. So we're still favourites. Pretty firm.
What? We just won the series.
Every year, doesn't matter. You'll never be favourites.
Oh my God.
I guess they're accounting Trbojevic and Latrell, but
we just won the series. That is crazy. That is crazy. And like, it wasn't like we had 2 away games. We beat you down in fucking ANZ Stadium as well. Oh, that's crazy. Oh, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. And again, I spoke a little bit about it earlier, but the scary thing with Queensland is that it looks like they've got quite a young team that they've put together. It looks like they're building into the future. Great times to be a Queenslander.
It's a great time to be an Origin fan.
100%. Absolutely. Anything else you want to talk about Origin? I would just quickly talk about, there was some comments made earlier in the week, and we'll parlay this into Victor Radley choosing to play for England, about the fact, New South Wales don't love the jersey as much as Queenslanders. Dearden's crying, getting the news. Meanwhile, New South Wales 6 is thinking about playing for Samoa, which is like, what, you think he woke up that morning and he was like, I can't wait to play for Samoa. I'm pretty sure Jerome Law would be sitting there thinking about Origin. I think this is ridiculous. And anyone that thinks that, all you have to, if you think New South Wales have players that want to play for other countries and that's why you lost, all you have to do is look at Papali'i, Tino, Fa'asuama'alawi, and Nanai were literally walking around the stadium after Queensland won in a Samoa flag. So they're just as passionate about their heritage as Luai and To'o. On top of that, Luai and To'o played for Samoa before they played for New South Wales. They're not these two things, guys, are not connected. Papali'i is considering playing for Samoa. So how is it that Luai is thinking about Samoa? But Papali'i isn't thinking about Samoa. If anything, Papali'i may be thinking about it more because he's still undecided. So the idea that because he's going to play for Samoa, that means he doesn't care about the jersey, well, then you have to say that's the same for Papali'i then, which is, I think we all know that's 100% not true. So I think it's really unfair on the players with different heritages. I think that there's clear factual evidence to show that's not true because the Queenslanders have Samoans, have people of all different heritages that are playing for them, and they play with as much passion and vigour as ever before. And so, I don't know, I want to get your thoughts. Do you think it's utter nonsense?
It really pisses me off. I just don't... I really don't understand it. I'm not bad at letting crap from the media fly over my head. I suppose I've been in it for long enough that I'm used to it and I'm able to do that. But, like, why can a player not have dual allegiances? He's got Samoan heritage. He's grown up or talking about, say, your Luais and whatnot, To'os, grown up and played in around Sydney and New South Wales their entire lives. Why can't they be proud to be both? And to say that they care less about the Blues because of their Samoan heritage, I just think it's a load of rot. It's like, why do they have to pledge to one or the other of those? I get it when it comes to a World Cup time and whatnot, but you can absolutely have both and be proud to.
Well, it's like saying, are you telling me then Luai doesn't represent Penrith with all of his heart? Because it's the same thing. Like Penrith is not in Samoa, New South Wales is not in Samoa. Those Penrith boys represent Penrith they've put Penrith on the map. Yeah. Like those Penrith boys with Samoan heritage and other heritage, but that group is mostly Samoan, put Penrith on the map. They have done things for Penrith that haven't been done for years. Like it's cool to be from the West now. So it doesn't add up because you're saying that they can represent Penrith to the fullest of their heart, but they can't represent New South Wales to the fullest of their heart because they have Samoan heritage. It makes zero sense. There is zero connection between the two things. As I said, on top of all of that, there are Queenslanders that may play for Samoa in the World Cup. So that immediately rubs it out. It's factually incorrect. What do you reckon, mate?
It's nonsense. Not only is it nonsense, it's baseless. Like, what is anyone basing that off? Like, how can you say that?
Yeah.
It's apples and oranges. It's like you can't. Origin, you're representing a state, and country, you're representing a family, and like the people close to you, they have nothing to do with each other. Like, I don't watch a Kangaroos game and think about state of origin. No. It's ridiculous, and like I reckon Jerome Luai would be insulted.
He should be
for sure.
Matter of fact, like any of those boys should be that. Like what I don't get is where's the evidence for that statement? Like because no one had an issue with To'o and Luai last year when you fucking towed us up. Everyone was talking about how great's Luai and To'o. They had one of the best debuts we've seen for New South Wales in recent memory. To'o scored 2 tries. You couldn't love To'o enough. But now when you lose, all of a sudden there's a problem. Like it makes zero sense. If you want to say, oh, I'll show you what the evidence is. The evidence is that Queensland won a decider in Queensland. Then I'll show you some evidence. New South Wales beat Queensland in Queensland by a record margin with 2 people with Samoan heritage playing critical roles. So, and also on top of all of that, as we said earlier in the piece, you know how hard it is to win a decider in Queensland, in Brisbane? There's only one person that's done it in the last 20-odd year. It's Joey Johns. And guess what? He had to have the greatest ever performance on a rugby league field to get it done. So,
and the only other people to do it were Laurie Daly and Ricky Stewart in '94, who, did they win their 3rd comp that year?
Yeah.
Exactly. So let's just remember how hard it is to win a decider. And also, if that's the way you're looking for the reason why you lost, you're looking in the wrong place. As I said, you should be looking at the errors made in your own half. And like errors made in your own half, they aren't intentional. Those boys didn't intentionally make those errors. No. They just happen because of the enormous pressure that Queensland put on them. They will be more experienced for it, that New South Wales side. I guarantee you, if New South Wales sort of play that game again next week, I guarantee you they tuck the ball under and they just roll with it and they get used to that grindy style of footy. Because, like, again, Victor Radley, he has decided to play for England in the World Cup. Now, initially, I was stung, like as Australian. I was like, fuck, I love you, Radley. I want you to play for us. But then I was like, you know what? Fuck, fair play to him. His father was born over there. He came out and said, who doesn't want to make their father happy? And is anyone going to sit here and tell me that you reckon Victor Radley wouldn't rip and tear in Origin? I know he's ruled himself out of Origin by playing for England, but that same argument you had for Luai, are you really, really going to sit here and say Victor Radley wouldn't fucking cherish that Blues jersey? You would never say that. You would never say that. And now you just wouldn't. Like, come on, guys.
I tell you what, when I heard that news, I was the same. I was stung, but not from an Australian perspective. I was stung because I wouldn't have seen Origin next year.
Yeah.
I didn't care about it. Like, I love Australia. I'm only Australian, but that just proves they've got nothing to do with each other.
Yeah.
Zero to do with each other.
It's great. It's anyway, we'll talk about Victor Radley's decision. As I said, making your father proud, I respect it. And same with Bizza, same with Luai, I respect it. And I think that we have to come to grips as a country that we are just, and you won't find a more proud Australian. I am so fucking proud of being Australian and I value it and I cherish it. But I think we have to come to grips that the landscape of Australia has changed dramatically. There are so many people from different heritages out there. And I can tell from my personal experience, the reason why I'm so proud to represent, if I ever was to represent Australia, which I wasn't, but if I was, is because I would be representing my father. So my mother and all my mother and father's heritage. So how can you knock a bloke for representing their father and mother's heritage that isn't Australian? You can't. Like, you seriously cannot. You respect it even more because didn't we used to praise young adults that did respect their parents and their heritage? That used to be a thing we respected. What were thoughts on the Radley thing?
Yeah,
situation?
mate, we're a multicultural nation, Australia. Rugby league is a multicultural sport, has been for years and years, and becoming even more so. So then to see something like Radley come out and say that he wants to, or he will be pledging his allegiance to England, like, who are we to say that, he should have more passion for Australia? I don't know the inner workings of his life and his family and all that. So for him to do it and give up the chance to play for the Blues after being a part of the squad in game 2, it's obviously a massive decision for him. And after a series loss, there's every chance that maybe he was going to be in the team next year. So good luck to him, and it's going to be another great factor for the World Cup.
I've never been more excited for a World Cup. Like, I'm genuine. And I don't mean this disrespectfully at all to any past World Cups. Well, when World Cups used to come back in the day, I used to be like, yeah, cool, I'll watch it when, like, if it's there and it suits my schedule. Or like, I would get down to watching the big games or whatever. Whereas, and also, like, I'd only get excited when the World Cup actually turned up. I'm excited right now for the World Cup. Like, I'm actually sitting here going, fuck, Victor Radley in an England jersey, snapping Aussies, that's fucking hectic. Like, the narrative around that, or Samoa getting a backline of the whole Panthers backline, that's crazy. Or what if they get Josh Papali'i or Tino Fa'asuamaleaui? Like, all of that. I'm super, super excited. What if Samoa do what Tonga did a few years ago? That would be friggin' incredible. Thoughts, Matty?
We love cricket because, like, Australia play other countries and it's competitive, and that competitive, like, creates a bit of hate, and it's the best. To me, like, yeah, it's been fun watching Australia, but it's like, what's the point if they're just pound teams every single time? My 2 biggest World Cup memories both have nothing to do with Australia. It was Tonga in the last World Cup, and it was New Zealand winning the World Cup in 2008. I agree with you, Dan, and I am pumped for this World Cup, not because of Australia, unless Cleary and Munster together, which would be cool. But besides that, Samoa, after what you say about the Penrith backline, Tonga, now England. I think England have a bit of work to do, but especially those Pacific nations, but most of all New Zealand. Yeah. New Zealand team, like, as long as no one gets injured, because I think that, like, the difference between Australia and New Zealand on paper probably isn't much, but the depth obviously is. I love it. I love that all these players are pledging their allegiance to other countries, and I can't wait to see a close, competitive World Cup.
And on top of all that, as an Australian, I only want blokes that fully want to play for the country, playing for the country. You know what I mean? I want to win the World Cup with 17 blokes that put Australia above all else. And that's not to say it's wrong to put, like, full respect if you have a heritage and you want to play for that. That doesn't mean it's less than Australia. But me as a proud Australian, I only want blokes in that jersey that feel the same way I do about Australia. And I want to win with 17 blokes that Australia is in their soul. And what's interesting, there actually are some guys with heritages at Samoa, Tongan, that I've spoken to personally that actually say, I respect my Samoan heritage, but I'm Australian and I'm really proud to be Australian. And I'm talking about players that will be selected for Australia. So, it's much more complicated than people try to make out it is. So I would rather win like, for example, if we win this World Cup, it won't just be like, oh yeah, Australia won a World Cup. No, it'll be fuck yeah, boys. Like, that's a massive win. We beat some really competitive sides. Like, the New Zealand side looks really, really good. Especially if there's no injuries. So I'm super excited. I think that for the benefit of the game, we have to. The only way this game grows is if the international game grows. Otherwise, we're just going to slowly, like, just eat ourselves in the eastern side of Australia. Whereas if we become a national game, look at rugby union. Like, it is basically dead in Australia. But as soon as the Wallabies put their jersey on, highly rated football that we all watch.
Yeah, like, I watched the Wallabies on the weekend, and, like, I normally just wouldn't even know it's on.
Yeah.
I'd like both games showing at the same time. It's so true. You pull that Australian jersey on, especially if it's like going to be, as I said before, a close contest, which it was against England. It just drives some excitement and you get more passionate about it. We need to, as a game, as rugby league, we need to try to get to that point. Yes, I understand Union is already a world game, but that's where we should be aiming for. So yeah, really, really exciting times. I've never been more excited for the Rugby League World Cup. Now, on to big news. This is... Just want to talk about this quickly. Mitch Moses receiving death threats before his game. Now, apparently it wasn't him getting called. It was like his family and friends getting called with death threats to Mitch and some of the players or whatever. This is insanity. Even if it's a joke, which it clearly wasn't because he had to be escorted to and from the game. Now, he seemed in good spirits. But this is really a situation where... Now, I understand it will be the police that prosecutes this person. But this is an opportunity for the NRL to really stand strong for its players and use whatever resources and connections it can use to make sure that whoever made these death threats is punished accordingly. This is an opportunity for the NRL to show how much they care about their players, because in no world should a player be receiving death threats. And I just hope, and I don't think that, like, Landis does seem like he really cares about the playing group and all of that. So I hope that they don't just go, oh, it's all good now, it's over, and they just forget about it. I hope that the NRL make sure they follow this up and they make sure that this person is not only prosecuted, but is also put up as an example that if you do any of this stuff to our players, you're gone. You are gone from the game and you're gone and you're going to be punished. Thoughts, Timmy?
Yeah, exact same, mate. Make a statement of this person or people or whatever it is comes out of it all. Never let them into a game of rugby league again in their life. Bar them from all any NRL-related stuff that they can, because we just don't need it in our game. And as you said, if it brushes past, it'd be a real shame, because if they make a statement of it, make it public that this person's been banned for life from everything, maybe the person sitting on the sideline who yells out something racist or whatever, or vulgar to a player, maybe they just think twice about it next time they don't do it. So it's a good opportunity for the NRL to say, no, there's no place.
No way. And to show that they care. Like, they truly care about the player.
They made a statement a few years ago when that one person fucked up the Dally M betting for everyone. I reckon they need to. I say it in jest a little bit, but they need to do that. They need to do the maximum.
Yep.
Like, I don't know what the laws are with death threats, but that's ridiculous.
And like, some people, it might go, they weren't serious or whatever. Like, okay, most likely, but what if they're not? What if they actually are serious? Like, that's when you receive a death threat where they're literally calling you, you have to face the possibility that by 1%, it could be there's 1% chance that it's real. It changes the way you do anything, leaving the house, going to the shops. Like, you have to, it's not as simple as, who cares, just brush it off, it's nothing. It's like, no, what if it's like actually true? Like, that's a reality you have to deal with. So I really hope the NRL, and again, I know it's the police that would prosecute this. It wouldn't be the NRL, but the NRL would have it. They should be constantly chasing this up, constantly putting pressure on the police to make sure it gets sorted. And if the person is found, make sure that person is made a fucking example of.
Yeah, and making us all aware that that person will never be allowed at a game 100%. Ever again.
Never thinking about doing that kind of stuff again. Now, on to the team of the week. A lot of good performances this week. I had one of the team of the week, Latrell at fullback, Saab on the wing, Kohler. Oh, and just in regards to just speaking about like bringing on sponsorships potentially, like for example, we might do X company, team of the week brought to you by X company. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about, guys. So I'm not talking about like a million ads or whatever. I'm talking about your normal podcast amount of ads that we're considering bringing on. But anyway, team of the week this week is brought to you by Bloke Jumpers. Bloke Jumpers, Wednesday, 6 p.m. Make sure to grab some. There you go. Boom. It's that easy. 6 p.m. Bloke Jumpers, and also got the Bloke beanies, but the tan jumpers, limited limited supply, tops and bottoms, and this is our last winter drop for another at least 11 or 12 months. We will not be dropping any more winter stuff for another 11 or 12 months. So if you want winter kit, make sure to be there Wednesday, 6 p.m. Also, grab a case of Bloke in a bar. Original Bloke is in every single IGA Plus liquor, Bottle-O, Celebrations, Porter's Liquor in New South Wales ACT. Plus, it's in every Celebration Superstore in Queensland. And you can go to our website, blokeinabar.com. We've also you can go to bloke.shop to grab any merch. But blokeinabar.com, we've got a store locator. You just chuck her in your postcode. It'll show you the nearest stockers of Bloke. Plus, Bloke MIDI is in every single Liquor Legends in New South Wales, Queensland, ACT, and Victoria. But now, team of the week. Latrell, Saab on the wing. Cooler at 3. Ramian at 4. 5, Alex Johnston. 6, Manu. Oh, man, this is a really tough one. 7, I thought Hunt, Hines, and DC were outstanding. But I am going to go with... DCE because of the week that he had. Totola at 8. Marnie at 9. Nelson Asafa Solomona at 10. I just thought he was so crucial to the Storm on the weekend. Davey, that is Manly's wide running forward. Davey at 11. Kickout at 12. Radley at 13, Tedesco at 14, Fisher Harris at 15, Hastings at 16, Dewey at 17, and I had Aaron Clark from the Titans at 18.
Love the big Andrew Davey shout out.
Mate, how good was he? He's killing it. Honestly, he is killing it. What do you got there?
Latrell, wingers AJ and Sivo, centres Ramian and Wanga Blake, halves Joey Manu and DCE. Front row, Tapani and Sofa Solomona, Reid Marnie at 9. Back row of Kikau and your boy Hutto Young, Victor Radley at lock. And then my bench was Dewey, Fatala Mariner, Josh Alawai. And at 17, I had Bevan French because I don't know if this is NFL specific, but when you score 7 tries, you got to get a plug somewhere.
100%. Absolutely. 7 tries. Yeah, so Bevan French scoring 7 tries. Also, actually, the boys from, I think, Wynnum won 100-0. Was it Wynnum?
Yeah, it was a winner.
Who was it against?
I'll have a look.
Apologies, guys. Just want to give them a shout out though. They won 100-0 against.
Jesus.
Anyway, it's a Wynnum boys. I'm not going to say who it was if I don't know, but yeah, 100-0.
Northern Pride.
Northern Pride, and was it what grade was it in?
QRL Colts.
Colts. So that's under 19s, isn't it?
I don't know. I
It'd be 19 or 20 or something.
100-0. So shout out to the Wynnum Colts. Wow. Talk about a rouser after that. If it is under 19s and you can have a beer, would.
Yeah, 21 and under.
21 and under. Wow, the boys have been ripping and tearing. Holy shit. How many drinks do you have after a 100-0 win? Obviously, drink responsibly, of course, but fuck me dead. 100-0. That's something you tell the grandkids, don't you?
I reckon you'd have about 30 tins of Bloke full strength.
Yeah.
25 middies.
Yeah.
Sorry, the other way around.
But obviously, you don't have that. That's all just in the imaginary world of Crazy Town. Because we drink responsibly here at Bloke in a Bar. But in a world where things were a bit crazier, we'd do that. Yeah, congratulations, boys. 100-0. Oh, my God. Talk about a spanking. Jesus. Now, on to the NRL games for the week. Sharkies, Cowboys versus Sharks. I thought this was a really, really good game, if I'm being honest. There were periods that were a little bit scrappy, but outside of that, I thought it delivered. I think, I think overall Sharks were the better side, but I have to say there was a crucial call that did swing the game fucking massively. Yeah. Matter of fact, it was a 12-point swing because if they score that, it's a 6-point. They went up and scored. Sharks scored on the next set. So let's just say that didn't happen. You're looking at a game that's 20 to 18. That would have been the score. Like, I know it would have been different, but 20 to 18. I guess we'll talk about this quickly. Look, I don't want to be a video ref basher too much, but unfortunately, if a player made an error like that, I'd be just as critical. That was a shocking call, and I don't understand in what world a support runner is now deemed as an obstruction when he is running to catch a ball. Like, he's not running a line. He's literally, imagine this. Imagine 2 players running for the ball. They're shouldering each other, and one guy gets shouldered off the ball because that's legal when you're shouldering and jostling for the ball. We would never say that player is an obstructing structure because they're both jostling for the ball. This is even worse than that because he wasn't even jostling with anyone. He was just, Reece Robson was literally just trying to support an inside play. And on top of all of that, I don't believe they would have made the tackle anyway. We're talking about Jason Taumalolo. Yeah. Again, I know the video ref didn't mean to make this call, but in my opinion, I just don't understand how you can even make that call. I don't understand how you can watch a game of rugby league and see that as an obstruction. Timmy, thoughts?
It was such crap. So one of the old, very rugby league saying is, where's he meant to go? He can't disappear. And that gets a lot of conflicting responses on social media because it's a pretty stupid term because it's generally used in reference to a lead runner on the line or block runners.
It's like, don't run the line, bro.
Yeah. But this one, as you said, you explained it well. The line break's already been made. He's supporting him there if needed to score the try. Like, where was he meant to go? What's he meant to do? Like, run off the... I don't know. It was just so absurd.
But, like, put it this way. Imagine if the defenders got there a second earlier and knocked him over. He would have got a penalty.
Yeah.
That's how crazy this call is. If they had knocked him over earlier, we have actually seen players be sin bin for taking players off the ball in a support play.
Yeah. Push him in the back trying to get the defender or something. Oh.
So imagine if they had have knocked Reece Robson early, the same situation, the same scenario happened 5 seconds earlier, he would have got a penalty and it may even have been 10 in the bin to the Sharks. That's how crazy that call is. Matty.
See, I'm definitely not defending the ref or the rule here, but I think the bunker might have been victim to the dumbest rule in rugby league because, like, listening to it back, the reason he gave it an obstruction was because Robson at one point was in front of Taumalolo. Now, I don't know why that's a rule, but I think, yes, the ref should have used common sense, but, like, if he used common sense, does he get in trouble for not following the rules to the exact rule book? Like, I know it's ridiculous. I know it's outrageous.
But the only thing is like he only came in front after Taumalolo had contacts to him. Before that, he was an inside support play. And so I understand what you're saying, but, like, you have to understand the game of rugby league if you are going to be in the bunker. And I'm not saying that in every other case the video ref doesn't understand the game of rugby league. But in no world was that an obstruction. In no world. As I said, if he had got hit 5 seconds earlier, like if he had got hit as he was supporting, he literally would have got a penalty and they would have been maybe sent 10 to the bin. That's how poor that call was. And so I there's no part of me that can excuse it. I understand what you're saying. I just disagree. Like the rule... It's so obvious that wasn't an obstruction. Like, it's so obvious.
No, I 100% agree. I reckon it was shocking. But, like, I just think they have to change the rule tomorrow so it never happens again.
The blame falls probably not on the video ref. It falls on the interpretation of the rule. And the rule just needs tweaking because...
But does it, though? Like, can we not expect our video refs to know the game a little bit better? Refs use discretion all the time. There have been many calls this year where an obstruction has happened 20 metres away from a ball and the ref has used their discretion to go, that player would not have made it.
Yeah.
So why can't we use that same discretion in an even more obvious situation? So, sometimes I feel like, it's easy to go, oh, well, the rule, it's not well written or whatever. It's like, hang on a sec. These are people being paid pretty good money in positions where we should expect them to at least have the footy knowledge to go, hang on a sec, that bloke was literally just supporting up the inside. In no way, shape or form could he have moved. He wasn't obstructing anyone because they both had a right to be there. Like, it's crazy. Anyway, I feel sorry for the Cowboys. Does it mean they would have won? Maybe not. I still think the Sharks were probably the better side. But it is really unfair. And look, I know the video ref didn't intentionally make that incorrect call, so please don't be too vitriolic towards the video ref and the people that made those decisions. But when something like that happens, unfortunately, we have to call it out. Just like if a player dropped a ball as he was scoring a try and he was doing something silly, I would say the same thing, that's not up to NRL standard and that needs to be improved.
It is crazy how we played this game that we have 6 agains and penalties that are totally up to the ref's discretion, yet we have these other things which are completely black and white and like they don't fiddle from.
That's the thing. That's the thing though. It's not black and white. There have been scenarios this year where the ref has said, we don't feel it had any impact on the play. That's discretion being used. That's discretion by the ref in video saying, yes, black and white, he did obstruct a player. A player was technically obstructed, but we don't feel it had any bearing on the play. It's just, anyway. But onto the game. I thought Ramian was outstanding. I actually think he's been probably having his best year of his career. If it isn't his best year, it's his best year since his breakout year, in my opinion. He's been so good. And that Sharks backline, they are truly becoming arguably one of the best backlines in the competition. If they aren't in the top 3 right now form-wise, I just got to disagree. I think they're top 3 form-wise right now as a backline. Thoughts?
Yeah, there are so many points in it.
Oh.
And depth as well. So Sifa Talakai is going to come back into that at centre. For Connor Tracy, who is like a starting 13 player in about 4 different positions at most clubs in the NRL, and he can't find a way to start for this team. That shows how good the Sharkies are going attack-wise. Like Ramian is going nuts. Mulitalo's a gun. Katoa's a gun. There are so many options for them. So, yeah, on top of all that, I think Sharkies. And the other one for the Cows was Tommy Gilbert backing up. He played 50 minutes straight post-Origin.
Far out.
Which, after playing 78 for the Maroons, that is 2 days after the game.
Incredible. What a monster. Oh. He loves it. Guru actually was like, I can't believe they're playing him a couple of days after Origin, but I was like to Guru, he seems like the guy that would be begging to play. Like just begging the coach, please play me. Plus he's in the middle, he's used to the I guess that part of the game, the rough and tumble. Whereas a guy like Dearden, you just got to wrap him in cotton wool because it's like you cannot afford a guy like Dearden.
So important.
So important to their push towards the finals. Outside of that, like Connor Tracy, 161 metres, like
gun.
He's a gun, and he would start in nearly any other team.
Yeah.
Mulata, like their back line is just devastating. Katoa is probably the most underrated winger in the comp right now. I'd make that argument. What do you reckon?
Yeah, for sure. I've thought all year as well that what we've been saying the last few weeks, that Ronnie and Katoa are right up there as far as wing pairs go in the comp. And we said even last week that they have a fantastic four. They're a really, really well balanced team, the Sharkies.
They've got the perfect balance right now because like their backline's incredible, but it's not going to break the bank. Their forward pack really strong, but there's no player in it that you're going, fuck, we've got to pay this bloke $1 million. Like even Nico Hines, like even him with his form, like you probably don't have to pay him $1 million yet because he hasn't won a comp. And so you look at this entire forward pack and the back line, you look at this entire 17, and there's really not a single player there that you go, oh shit, this is going to throw our cap way out of whack. It is almost like a salary cap's, accountant's dream, because you go, this is perfect to balance. We're going to put the money in the right spots. No one's going to be asking for too much. We've got a 6 in Moylan who is hitting career best form, but because of past injuries, he's not going to demand too much. Like everything is landing perfectly for them. Blake Brayley, again, such a good 9, but he's not scoring, having 3 try assists and all that kind of stuff in a game, so he's not going to break the bank, but he definitely can win a premiership in my opinion. You've got like guys like Cam McGuinness coming off the bench making 40 tackles, only missing 1. Dale Finucane, you've got the real leader. Like it's just what a masterstroke. And again, like even like the signing of Dale Finucane, like some people were balking at that because they were like, oh, he may be at the end of his career.
Please.
And yet look at him. Like he's so important to that side. They're just so well balanced. It's incredible. And I just think that even guys like Braden Hamlin-Ueli, like I think that he's still got a whole nother gear in him. He's, slowly easing his way back from injury.
I would argue the Sharks are a better team with Teague Wilton starting in the back row than Wade Graham.
Yeah, great point.
The style they play. And then they're blokes like, well, Jackie Williams has gone for the season, but he was out of the squad. Aiden Tolman gets dropped. I think it was him this week because their forward depth is immense as well.
Yeah.
So they can cover every position so well.
Yeah, to think like Wade Graham right now, even though he started, is like you could afford to probably put him on the bench. It just shows you this Shark squad, and it's like it's a relatively young squad when you look at it. Like, yeah, okay, you've got Dale and Wade that are a little bit older, but when you look at their forward pack, Royce Hunt, Blake Brayley, Toby Rudolph, Teague Wilton, they're young for forwards. They've got plenty more footy left in them. Yeah, really, really impressive. And I want to give a shout out to Andrew Fafita.
Yeah.
Like players like that are superstars. it's very hard to transition into that final period where you're no longer a superstar and you need to become that veteran that doesn't necessarily get the attention that they probably deserve because everything he's done in his career. I just think he's transitioned into just a battler willing to get through his work for his teammates. I just really respect it. Like, I really respect it.
I think he's been fantastic, and I had him jotted down in my notes. I went to the Sharkies and Storm game at Shark Park last Thursday week ago, and had him jotted down before it was a late scratching from the podcast, but I wanted to give Fafita a wrap after that game because he's come in, he actually started that game, but he's basically come into this bench impact role where he only played 15 minutes on the weekend, but sometimes that's all they need out of him. Most weeks he'll play, maybe 25 or 30. He looks terrific. Like he's offloading at will, not on the weekend, but other weeks. He's a real. He has an X factor off the bench, which for a bloke with a lot of injuries to him, his knees are on his way out. He's really revived his career. He's had a very different role, and he's eking out everything that he can.
Yeah, and I think he's so important for that young pack as well. Like there'd be a lot of young guys that relate to him and can understand his journey and see all the ups and downs that he's been through. He's had to mature massively as a bloke. And I think it's really paying dividends. Who would have thought Andrew Fafita a few years ago would eventually become that veteran that a lot of young players could lean on? I know internally a lot of people would have guessed it because anyone that's played with Andrew will tell you how good of a bloke he is in regards to his commitment to the team. And I just think he's matured massively. Seriously, really, really good stuff from Fafita. But outside of that, like Nicho Hynes, he's just so slick, honestly. That every backline move, they got space. Every time, like I feel like sometimes any other player, I'd be like, oh, you're overplaying your hand. You're literally in everything. But with Nicho Hynes, it just works. Like, it just works. He's so silky. He must be a nightmare to defend because he's so deceptive. Like, he doesn't look that fast or that strong, but if you give him too much space, he'll just cut you to pieces. Like, he'll just cut you to pieces. Toby Rudolph, I think, the last 2 weeks especially, has been outstanding for them. I think Craig Fitzgibbon is a godsend for a guy like Toby Rudolph, just really teaching him that nitty-gritty part of the game. Toby Rudolph has always had all the potential in the world. What are your thoughts on the game, Matty?
My biggest takeaway from the game was when Blake Brayley got sin-binned, I think it was just before half-time, and just how the Sharks reacted to that when they came out in the second half and just defended their asses off.
Yep.
Especially against a team like the Cowboys who, okay, the last 3 weeks they haven't defended great, but they've started the year defending so well. I think they showed a lot of grit, especially up in Townsville, and I think they can lean on this game to look back and we did this with our hooker off the field.
Yeah. Are we Sharkies a genuine threat?
Look, I think they've, for all the reasons Rich mentioned, and particularly
They've gone storm Cowboys.
Yeah, how much attack they have in them. They can. I mean, it's hard because
They got Penrith this week.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that in a lot of their harder games this year that have come up, there's been injured, there's outs or a few excuses around them to say that I don't know they've been fully tested yet this year. We're about to see it, aren't we? A Penrith side with all their rep players rested from the week or semi-week off, but we'll talk about this next week, but we're going to find out if they're genuine contenders or not.
Yeah. Oh, man, it's interesting. I tell you what, they're absolutely hitting the same form that they were in at the start of the year. Absolutely. I
think as well.
I can see it.
I think as well, again, would never write off the Storm, but every week I'm getting closer and closer to being a little concerned, and we'll talk about Melbourne later, but to me, Storm are coming down a bit, especially now that Paps is out for the year and the Sharkies are coming up.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. I think, again, I'll reserve judgment till I see this weekend. The thing is, they've got the Penrith Panthers at the worst time.
Oh, shocking.
They've got an angry, rested Nathan Cleary. Cleary is going to come back angry. I mean, all those boys, they're going to come back pissed. They're going to come back okay, we didn't get the Origin Series. Now we must win the fucking grand final and we must continue this incredible run. So they could not ask for a better test of where they're really at in the competition. But at the moment, I think that they are a genuine premiership. Put it this way, they're in the top, and of course they're in the top four. But as in when it comes to 4 teams that could potentially win the comp, they're one of them, in my opinion. Penrith is still a step above everyone else, But if you were to say, like, if you remove that step and you just said, who are the 4 teams that can win the comp this year? Right now, I'd definitely have Sharkies in there. Yeah. Definitely.
So I went over the stats page to have a look at where...
I'll talk about your stats page that you launched last week. So at
scplaybook.com.au, just launched a big data centre.
So that's scplaybook.com.au.
Yeah, so all sort of, for any super coaches out there, super coach related content.
Yep.
And as a part of all that, so we've got like past champions and runners up and that sort of thing contributing to the page articles wise. And with the data center, that's just a stack of all things around break evens, price change calculators, all added to the side just as an additional tool to go with the article and podcast content as well.
So basically, stats for every player, every game.
Stats for everything, yeah. And it's not just sort of NRL stats, but Supercoach specific stats and tools. So things like I said, price change calculators. If you're trying to work out if you want to loop your vice captain score, which is obviously a big Supercoach related thing, you can jot numbers into that and change them all up. Player ownership data. So yeah, a lot of sort of time and effort and a bit of money gone into that one. So up and running on website. So if anyone wanted to check it out.
Yeah, go check it out. scplaybook.com.au. And it'd be a good place to kind of see players' forms. Is it like really easy to navigate?
Yeah, that's a go, mate. So there's a bit of data out there around Supercoach and NRL, particularly on like the main site, but just very easily accessible. Some good tools, looks nice, pictures of all the players and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's what we want.
Yeah, good.
Very easy to navigate. That was the big thing we wanted to go with.
Yeah, because like you just want it simple. You want to be able to go, boom, like how's this player travelling in the last 6 weeks, and I'd assume it just has the graph and that.
Yeah. So no, all there, mate.
How good. Look. Going to be really interesting this week. Going to be really interesting for the Sharkies. I hope they do, because could you imagine a Sharks push in the finals? Far out. Shy would be going off.
I think they'll definitely make the 4 as well, because they got an easy draw. So
after Penrith, they got a...
Yeah, they got Penrith, then South, but I think they've got Knights, Tigers, Bulldogs and Dragons all in the last 4 or last 5 rounds.
Run.
Oh, and we were speaking about this a couple of weeks ago. If they can go 2 from 3... I think was in a month, in that month of footy or whatever, because this is their hard run. They've gone Storm, Cowboys, Penrith, and at the minimum they're going to go 2 from 3, which is a massive win. So yeah, like aside from a crazy drop in form, man, to think the Sharkies would finish in the top 4 this year, what a year by Craig Fitzgibbon. Far out. Like I backed him for sure. Did I have him in my top 4? I don't know. I definitely, when they were recruiting midway through last year, I was like, Sharkies are the next team to make a push. Yep. But damn, they look good. Far out, they look good.
So Nico, just on the stat, 17 line break assists this season, 3 clear of Joey Manu in second place. He's got the 3rd most offloads in the NRL.
What?
In the top 5, he's the only backline player. Just on top of it, he's also leading field goals with 3. This is a bloke who's transitioned from fullback to halfback this season. I don't have the number in front of me, but the one that keeps his repeat sets for a bloke who's transitioned into a playmaking role. Geez, he can jag a repeat set.
Yeah, mate. And what's crazy is like even the year where he had a breakout year, he was still a utility for most of the year. So it wasn't even like he got a whole season at fullback. He was playing he'd come on at 13, at 7 sometimes. It's just incredible. Far out, he's improved. Cowboys. I don't think there's much to be worried about here. I thought they fought really hard and got really unlucky with a crucial call in a crucial time. I think there's still a chance for sure. What are your thoughts on the Cowboys?
Yeah, I find it really hard to be critical at all of any team missing as many stars as they do. When a team manages to win a game post, say, Origin with restings or a bye-round clash, then you're like, wow, that's super impressive for the depth. But the amount of troops that the Cowboys are missing in that one, as I said, that 12-point swing could have changed that game, or did change that game very quickly. It could have gone the other way, and to be even in the fight with a full-strength Sharks side minus Talakai, it's a big effort. Yeah,
and I don't think the score reflected how close the game was.
No.
Not at all. Like, they had the same amount of missed tackles. The percentage split of possession was 51% to Cowboys, 49% to the Sharkies. Completion rate, 73% Cowboys, 75% the Sharkies. So, like, we're talking razor close game. That really should have been... To be honest, it should have been 20-18 to the Sharkies, in my opinion. That would have been a more appropriate score. So, all the positive things we've just said about the Sharkies, we say about the Cowboys. Matter of fact, even more so, because they were missing Dearden, Nanai, Taulangi,
Val.
Bell. So, matter of fact, it might even be a more impressive outing when you think about it. Like, let's say it was a draw, on statistically speaking. They managed to draw against arguably a premiership threat, missing 4 of their starting players. They've also got Hillam Lukey, who's out long term. And look, I'm sure the Sharkies are missing a couple of players, but I don't think they're missing.
Not really, hey.
Really?
They're pretty well full strength.
Full strength. Okay, well, even better for the. And Jordan McLean. They're missing McLean as well. Far out.
Cotter due back either this week or next.
And Cotter as well. It's actually an incredible performance by the fucking Cowboys. Because that's like 7 players from your starting side.
Rep players.
Yeah, and high quality players. Yeah, so look, I thought it was a great performance from the get-go. Scotty Drinkwater, far out. He's so slick, honestly. The way he glides across the park, and it's like he's always ready to pass at whatever length he needs to. You know, in the sense of like, he's always ready to either hit short, or if he needs to throw a fucking 20-meter cutout ball, his body position is just always in that right position. Whereas some players, like, they'll always have the ball tucked under, or they're just not ready to throw that long ball. But he is just constantly a danger. Peter Hiku had a massive game, 237 metres, 93 post contact, 5 tackle breaks, which is really good because I thought Peter Hiku's form had dropped a little bit the last month. I thought he had a really good start to the year. The last few weeks, he had a few missed tackles, a few errors here or there. Whereas on the weekend, he still had an error, but outside of that, his ball running was amazing. Matter of fact, I think he ran for the most metres of any player on the field. Chad Townsend, just so important to the side, just his calm head, getting them around the park. Thoughts on the Cowboys?
I was listening to Scotty Drinkwater on the Matty John show last night, and he was speaking about Dearden and Townsend and their relationship on field. And when he was asked about Dearden, he was giving him great raps, of course, but he was sort of saying pretty quiet when he's out on the field. He said, really good at organising the blokes around him on his edge, but it's all the Chad. Chad does all the talking, gets everyone around, obviously organises his edge, but then through the middle as well and where they want to get to. Townsend is obviously the guy in terms of getting, which is no surprise. We know he's the main playmaker, organiser at that side, but I find it so interesting hearing the intricacies of halves relationships, and they're all so different. Chad's the man there, but not to say what Dearden isn't as effective.
Well, you don't want 2 Chads.
No, of course not. They step on each other's toes, and we look at the Roosters with Keary and Walker, how they can't work out that relationship. Yeah. But what the Cowboys are doing in their halves, they've obviously got a perfect relationship.
Nailed it. You look at Reynolds and Mam, perfect relationship at the moment. Another huge, terrible call was Hess on Finucane. The tackled without the ball.
Oh yeah.
What the fuck? Oh, man. That was... So... Cowboys got dudded. Like, let's be real. Again, doesn't mean they would have won. Who knows? The thing is, it's like, you still don't know with those calls. Like, Sharks could have gone on and won by more if they, you know what I mean? If they didn't get those calls, because you don't know what the future is going to hold. But those 2 calls were big calls in the scope of the match, taking absolutely nothing away from Sharkies. As I said, I still felt that they were the better side on the day, but Cowboys definitely had some rough calls. Outside of that, Luciano Leilua, 9 tackle breaks, so he's starting to slowly find his rhythm there. Reece Robson, 42 tackles, 52 run meters. Look, I just thought it was the Cowboys just look. I just can't. Every time I watch them now, especially when they're playing in the big games, I just can't believe how far they've come. Like, I cannot. When I sit there and go, how is this essentially the same squad as last year? Like, that's how good Toddy Payton's been. Another bloke I want to shout out is Griffin Neem. Mate, I think he's been outstanding this year. He's a Kiwi, I'm pretty sure. Well, I wouldn't be surprised if... Actually, matter of fact, I think he was selected in the Kiwi squad against Tonga. But if he wasn't, he should be in the... I think he should be at least in the World Cup squad for the Kiwis. I think he's been really good. Anything else stand out for you from the game?
No, I covered most of it on that one, I think.
And what about you, Matty?
Like, if I have to nitpick, the only thing is they've conceded 26 points exactly the last 3 weeks, and they have been, known for that. I think I just looked it up. They conceded 28 against the Roosters, and besides that, 26 is the most they've conceded. So I get it. It's the origin period. They got a few players out, but that's probably the only thing I'd probably say about the Cowboys.
Yeah, it's true. With a team that's prided themselves on defence for leaked that many points, definitely.
In saying that, they actually won 2 of those games.
Yeah.
But
you still don't want to be leaking that many points because eventually it'll come back and hurt you. Someone will be able to hold you out. What's up, guys? Before we get back to the footy chat, make sure to grab a case of Bloke Midi. We're now in every single Liquor Legends. Go to liquorlegends.com.au, put in your postcode. It will show you your nearest stockist. And OG Bloke is in every single Celebrations, Bottle-O, IGA Plus Liquor, and Porter's Liquor in New South Wales and ACT. Plus, it's in every single Celebrations Superstore in Queensland. Also, we're in plenty more stores. You go to blokeinabar.com, you put in your postcode, it will show you your nearest Bloke stockist. On top of all of that, Bloke 10 hoodies dropping next Wednesday, 6 p.m. Be there, limited amount. Bloke 10 hoodies and Bloke 10 trackies. Now, back to the footy. Yeah, so Cowboys, I think that you guys, Cowboys fans, should be incredibly proud of their effort. They had massive things not go their way. Couple of calls, a bunch of players out. I really think the Cowboys should be extremely proud of that performance, and I think it still doesn't change the fact that I think that they're premiership threats. Like I know Panthers are just a step above, but I would have Cowboys and Sharkies right now on an even playing field for a premiership threat. Now on to the next game, Eels versus Warriors. I'll get your thoughts first on this one, Timmy.
Yeah, it was a bit of a funny old game. I mean, I'm still no closer to assessing where Parramatta Eels are at because it's a game that, on paper they should have been winning quite comfortably. There was 2 quite late tries to the Warriors, which probably flattered the scoreline a little bit. But at the same time, the Eels, who one week will beat Melbourne and then Penrith and then lose to a bottom 4 side, they've got the job done. They got a win. It was comfortable, so I don't think it really changes my opinions on them too much, other than not putting them away. There was one moment to me that I was sitting there watching and just sort of admiring, and it was Dylan Brown, who just gets better every week. There's a really great top shot of the Sevo try where they go downfield and Brown works his ass off to get back for it. They go through the hands, and because he's putting the effort, he's the only one within miles that's tried to get back for it, and he ends up setting up a try for Micah Sevo. It was just such it wasn't a little effort area, it was a big effort area that sealed the match for Parramatta and put the score beyond doubt. I love that.
Dylan Brown, he's incredible for one. But when you look at what he could be, do you think the Eels are going to struggle to keep him financially? Because I don't know how you keep Dylan Brown and Moses together long term. Not because they're not good together, but like Dylan Brown is so fucking good. How do you keep them together? Yeah,
it'll just depend how they want to structure their roster, whether they want to do a Melbourne Storm type setup where they go heavy in their spine or whether they, basically if they want to keep them together, it'll cost them good back rolls. Like the Storms stack their spine and then plug gaps elsewhere, and they say a gun spine will be enough to get it done despite what's around them. With Parramatta, who knows how they want to do it. The fact that they've let go of Papali'i and
we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll see. And Reid Marnie suggested, all right, they will do everything they can to keep those 2 together. It's achievable, but we'll see.
Open market. You're a struggling club. How much are you paying Dylan Brown?
Probably 800. He's a gun.
I'm with you.
Yeah, he's a gun both attack and defence, which is so underrated with halves.
And he's a defender that can attack in defence. Yeah. Like he can jam blokes as well. And on top of everything, his efforts are huge. Like you can go back and find 10 highlights of Dylan Brown chasing from the other side of the field, tackling a bloke out to a try saver. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, he's just a star. And we know that the NRL's potentially a little bit shorter on quality halves in the competition. You've got a bloke who is only on the up. He's only going to get better and better as he learns his craft. And Brown, if you can lock in an absolute gun for, say, 800K, I'd happily do it.
Would you throw an extra 100K on top because he's cool?
He's a very cool dude.
He's fucking so cool.
I saw a thing, was he on the Matty John show last week? And I can't remember, it was obviously a family member or a partner or something that tweeted out that he didn't want to go on the Matty John show.
He was shy, yeah.
Yeah, because he's shy.
Yeah.
But he said if you double the payment and donate it to some organisation, he's like, he'll do it. Yeah. What a legend.
Like, it doesn't get cooler than that.
Yeah.
Fucking, not only, doubling it, but not even taking any of the money and giving it to charity. Absolute legend. Maddie, thoughts on Dill Brown?
Yeah, he's fantastic, isn't he? And money-wise, I don't know, 700-800. But I really want him to stay at the Eels because they've lost so many people. Like surely they can muster enough money to keep him.
Like long term, I can genuinely, like, he is so athletically gifted. Like, think about it. He's super fucking fast. He's got crazy good footwork. He's big and strong, 6'2". He's got a crazy motor. Plus, he's got silky hands. Like, his ceiling is like...
And he's one of the best defensive...
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, his ceiling is truly... Honestly, his ceiling is like Munster. Now, I'm not saying that he's going to do what Munster did, but they're both... Like, I would actually say athletically, Dylan is more athletic than Munster is, whereas Munster may have just that weird ball-running strength. But in saying that, Dill's strong as well. But that's where that's the direction I see Dylan heading.
I'd love to see him without Mitch Moses and be with a lesser halves partner. Let's say Moses goes down for a while and Jake Arthur comes in and it's Brown's show to run. Yeah. And that's where we'd really find out how good he is when he's doubling his touches in a game and like how well he can control the game. I'm sure he'd have no doubt, but he's got such a nice little relationship with Mitchy Moses in the halves there. But if he was the guy, be interesting.
Well, how do you think Munster would go as the guy with a average 7?
It's just not his style, is it?
But that's what I mean. Like, I see Dylan more in that vein than I wouldn't buy Dill as the guy that's going to lead the blokes around the park.
Yeah.
I'd buy him in a Munster vein of like, we need a game breaker and he's the guy.
We don't necessarily want you running the show and organising. It's like when you see something, eyes up, get the ball, run it, take it on, be a bit sporadic,
Yep. So Dill for me, honestly, he's just... I can't express to you enough how athletically gifted this kid is. Like, he is super, super quick, super explosive, but he's also fit. And he's just getting started. How old is he? 21? He's super, super young.
20. He just turned 22.
Just turned 22. Yeah. And this is how complete this kid's game is. Like, the only knock is like maybe he can be a bit too chill, I guess. Like last year, but then like he was young. It's like, so a lot of people like to look to last year and they're like, oh, he only had 3 try assists. But it's like, we have to understand he's a human being developing confidence in the NRL. Like, there's a lot of times where I'm sure he wanted the ball last year where he thought, and he'll hesitate, and then Mitchell Moses gets the ball because Mitchell Moses is so dominant. I don't think much has changed in his game in the last 12 months. The only thing that's changed is him being confident to call the ball.
Yeah, he also... He came out at the start of this season and said he had a few things going on off field and his head wasn't in the right spot and he said it impacted his footy.
Yeah.
He said before this season that he was all good, things were great off field and he's ready to go, and as a result he's come out and absolutely obliterated it. In terms of footy changing to last year, I could be wrong, I don't think I am, but him and Moses switched sides, was this season? It may have been last season, but I'm pretty sure that they switched edges this year and it's changed it. Well, everything for them, really.
Really?
Yeah.
That would change a lot then. I just think that he's, when you've got stuff going on off the field, it's your confidence that takes a hit. It's because what is confidence really like? It's happiness. It's backing yourself. And so let's say you're down and out off the field. When you do come and play footy, you're not happy. You're not looking for the ball. You're kind of just doing your job. And so I just think the difference between last year is obviously exactly what you just said, but like specifically on the field, I honestly believe it's just a matter of like being enjoying your footy so that you're energetic, you're high energy, like you want the ball. Whereas like when you're down and out, you're there to do your job. Whereas he just seems confident now. Like anytime he wants a short side play or whatever, boom, he gets it.
I think he's also realising how good he is.
100%.
Like he doesn't just belong at NRL level, but he can dominate at it.
Yeah. Yep. And I do believe him and Sean Lane are building quite a chemistry and combination. Sean Lane in him with like a lot of the short balls he hits with Sean Lane, great lines. Their timing is getting really good. I mean, put it this way, their combo is so good that it's kept Madison out of the starting side for a lot of the year. So yeah, Dylan Brown for me has been outstanding. He's probably been, outside of Munster, he's probably been the most consistent 6 this season, I'd say.
Yeah, there's not bad games in him, is there?
Not this year, not at all. Last year a little bit quiet. Yeah. Last year he still was the best defensive 6 in the competition, just in attack. But this year, I honestly think that outside of Munster, he's probably been the best 6 in the competition. I think he took up an option for another year. So I think can you check his contract if he's available to talk to someone at the end of this year? If it's not this year, it's definitely next year he can talk to someone. But I think it is this year he can sign somewhere at the end of this year. Now, he may be waiting to see what Mitch Moses does.
Yeah, so he can talk as of November 1. He's contracted until the end of 2023.
Yeah, and so I think that he's waiting to see what Mitchell Moses does, because Mitchell Moses actually has a player option, I think, for next year, isn't it?
Mitchell Moses?
Yeah, that he hasn't executed yet, I don't think.
It's 2024.
2024, okay. So he hasn't executed his option for 24
No,
yet.
it still says PO, which means
okay.
it's still
so
legal.
going to be interesting to see how the Eels balance this, because we all agree, he's probably around worth 700 to 800k a year, 650 on the low end, it's tough, because if you were going to say, okay, well, if he's worth 7 to 8, how is Reynolds and Townsend only worth 7 to 8? I guess, are you paying a bit for potential, like for what he could be?
Yeah, and I mean, the other two fellas are at the back end of their career. This is a bloke that, you can build a club around for a lot of years.
Yeah. So really interesting times at the Eels. What do you got there, Matty?
No, nothing. Sorry.
All good. Any other comments on the game? Papali'i, the try where Papali'i scores that try, he gets up, does a Hadouken. I know it's not the Hadouken. I know it's something else. I think, was it some anime thing?
Oh God, I don't know.
I think it's some anime thing, but like the picture of him doing that is so fucking hectic. He's got blood pouring down one side, but on the ball there's blood smeared across it, and you're just like, that is so hectic. Like he's doing a Hadouken covered in blood after scoring a try in the NRL.
Was he doing a Wilson from Castaway?
Yeah. What do you think?
Just my thoughts on the Eels. Like, no one can get a read on the Eels, but I think that was their first back-to-back win in about 12 weeks.
Really?
About 3 months. So they just needed to get a win. Mate. I thought it was good as well. Their forwards, like they had a tough night against the Rabbitohs a couple of weeks ago, and every single one of their starting forwards, except Marnie, ran over 100 metres. And even like things like Moses and Brown, I think Moses forced about 3 dropouts. Brown might have forced one as well. I think they just needed that win, the Eels.
Yeah, look, I'm going to stick to my guns here. Regardless of what happens for the rest of the year, I still think Eels can win the premiership. I'm not saying they're a favourite at all. I'm just saying that, like, can they potentially win the comp on a run? I think so. Whereas, like, even the Broncos, I just don't think they've got that extra little bit in them to, like, win a comp. Whereas I just think Para, they've just proven it. They've beaten both sides. They're the only team to have done it. So even if they just, kind of win a game here, lose a game there, I just think that they could go on a run. I really do. As long as they don't get fatigued, I really do. Now, quickly on the Papali'i thing. Now, he didn't actually deny. He was asked about the Tigers thing, and the report that I read, and apologies if I got to get this wrong, but he didn't actually deny. He just said, I'm not thinking about that right now. Thoughts on Papali'i potentially backflipping on the Tigers?
Oh, don't do it to the poor Tigers. The last thing they need is him backflipping on them. I don't know. I don't know details about it, so I'm a bit hesitant to comment, but I hope for the sake of the very patient Tigers faithful that he goes.
Yeah, I'm the same. Look, even if he signed under the pretext of, Michael Maguire, I still think a contract's a contract, unless it specifically has in that contract that you are only going there to be coached by Michael. If it does have that in the contract, then fair enough. That's, the Tigers shouldn't have put that in the contract. I would understand that because it was part of the agreement between two parties saying, I am only coming to this club if he is the coach. But if it wasn't in the contract and it's just something that you are frustrated with, then I'm sorry. A contract's a contract. You go unless the Tigers and you can come to a mutual agreement where the Tigers are okay and happy, then you've got to go and play the best footy you can play. What do you got there, Matty?
Oh, sorry. I was going to correct myself before about the Eels thing. They won back-to-back in round 11 and 12, but in the last 3 months, that's the only time they've done it.
No one would have pinged you, bro. You would have been.
You know what? Someone pinged me last week, and I said, I don't remember the last time the Storm conceded 64 points in 2 weeks, and they did it like 6 weeks ago.
Papali'i situation, thoughts?
I read it, and this is before this was before the Tim Sheens Benji thing happened, and I was like, fuck, like, can you really blame him? Even though it's pretty dog, like the Warriors are an absolute basket case at the moment. Just
the Tigers.
Sorry, the Tigers.
Bit of straight ball, but the Warriors caught a stray there.
Sorry, Warriors. I still got Eels Warriors in my head. But I don't know if he signed a contract. I get it. I'm thinking with you, then. Like if he signed it to be with Madge, then he has. I guess he has every right to walk away if that's
it's written in the contract.
It's written in the contract.
Or if there's explicit, like there's evidence of like emails going from Tigers to Papali'i's manager saying, just to confirm, this is only under Michael Maguire, then I'm like, you know what? That's the agreement that they came to, and that agreement has unfortunately been broken by the Tigers. But there's no evidence to suggest that. There's no evidence to suggest that.
No. So, if there's no evidence, then, he should stick to his guns and go to I think it got quashed pretty in a day or two, didn't it? Like, I think a Tigers official came out and confirmed that he spoke to Papali'i and...
But the thing is, like, then I read a report yesterday that after the game when he was asked, he said, I'm not thinking... He didn't say, no, I'm going. He just said, I'm not thinking about that right now.
Really? Okay.
Because you would quash it straight away.
If you were going, you'd be like, no, I've signed the contract. Yeah. It's all good. So it's really interesting. There's surely more to it. Look, I understand the argument of, you know, he's a young man. He just needs to do what's best for his footy and his family. I get all that. But, again, I'm always of the mind, unless something has gone on, like, for example... if I'm at a club and a coach is like treating me terribly and like, you know, overtraining me or training me injured or something is causing a situation where like I'm not happy and I need to get out of there, then I can understand why a player or a club would go to the other party and say, look, we need to part ways. But I think if nothing bad has happened, like if the Tigers have done nothing wrong to Papali'i that would cause any unhappiness, then he should go. Like he should go. So hopefully he does. Or like, look, worst case scenario, let's say he's just so intent on not being there for the 2 or 3 years that he signed. Maybe he goes for a year. He lets them know, guys, I'm going to give everything I've got. But while I'm here, I'll give you enough time to sign someone else to replace me. And then once you find someone, I'll move on. That would be the best of a terrible situation where you give the club time to, you know, find someone else, and then you move on.
I think the problem is he was back row of the year, Dally M last year. Yep. But that was a season where he came from basically being a bench player at best for the Warriors. One really good year. I think when the Tigers signed him, they still probably thought that they got him on unders. So then he's come out this year and just backed up everything he did last year. So his value's gone even higher. So the Tigers will still be going, we've got him on probably less value than what he's worth. Oh, I might be wrong, but... yeah, so if he does bait for that bit on shit, we've lost out on a good deal there.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think he will. He will. I'd be really disappointing if he did, because the thing is if he backflips now, it'll follow him everywhere. He'll never have peace from it. Like the West Tigers fans, every fan of rugby league will never be able to appreciate Papali'i for the player he is, because it will always be there.
Yeah.
Like look how long DCE has had to bloody deal with it. He's only just now, like after everything he's done, he's only just now, and I actually think his backflip was legal, was it?
Yeah, the cooling off period back then was very different.
So he actually had back then on contracts, you had a cooling off period. So basically you sign the contract, but then you get, let's just say 30 days to go, was it the right call? You know, emotions are less, you know, lessened in that. And so I actually think even though it was a backflip in the sense that he'd agreed to it, like technically it wasn't. So even though he didn't do anything illegal or whatever, or breaking of a contract because it was cooling off period, he still had to face that. So really, I know, I hope for Tigers' sake. Outside of that, yeah, good win for the Para Eels, really good win. Now it's just building off that. I will say, and I spoke to Smithy about this, is like maybe the reason for their inconsistency is they're trying something different from the last few years where they go really well for the first 10 rounds or first 10 to 15 rounds, and then they just literally, like remember last year, they were like pretty much top 3, I think, and then they just went boom and imploded for the last 5 to 6 weeks of the year, or maybe even longer. And so maybe they're trying something different where they're keeping the boys fresh for finals footy to go on a run. I don't know if that's the case, but it could be. Massive respect for Junior Paulo backing up after his Origin game. Outside of that one error, I thought Junior Paulo was fantastic. His game 2 and 3 were really, really good for the Blues. And he's shown why he's a premier front rower. But, so Eels, good solid win. Now, on to the next game. Roosters v. the Dragons. Roosters go away with it 54-26. Oh. Huge scoring game. Hunt, so the Roosters were dominating the first 20 or so. Then Hunt goes, I'm going to just change the whole game myself.
Yeah.
Kicks a 40-20, scores a try, sets up another try. He was absolutely outstanding after everything that he'd done that week. But the Roosters get the deal done. We'll talk about the biggest story, obviously Manu's little gammon injury. So basically what happened for people that didn't see it, go check the highlight out. Manu had the ball. So the game was done. Roosters were at least 2 tries ahead of, and it was maybe 10 minutes to go. There's no way that the Dragons could come back into the game. Anyway, so Manu gets the ball. As he gets the ball, he's running, but he stops and it looks like he cramps. And as he stops and he cramps, it looks like the Dragons players stop too, because, it's all part of that kind of sportsman, don't jam a bloke when he's injured. But then, he stands back up and realises there's a gap, runs, and he sets up a try. He then eventually, so as he gets tackled, his legs are like straight. So you can tell he actually is cramping because he is taken from the field. As soon as he is tackled, he's taken from the field. So there's no denying he was cramping. There's no denying that. But there has been argument online of it being unsportsmanlike conduct, and basically, if he really was injured and the Dragons jammed him, then they would be seen as the bad guys. And now going forward, the teams, not give players that space if they do go down injured because they could be faking it. My personal opinion is, yeah, okay, I understand Dragons fans being pissed off for sure. I just think it was everything that could go. It was like a calamity of unlucky events. He definitely did cramp, but then the gap was there. So if you're a Roosters fan, you're like, bro, take the gap. Don't just not score. So I can understand why Dragons fans are frustrated though. So
I think we can all say that he didn't do it he didn't fake an injury on purpose.
No.
To run through a gap.
No, it wasn't like he's like, you know what? I'm going to pretend to be injured, and then no. Let's be. Joe Manu does not need to fake injuries to fucking break.
It wouldn't change anything.
He's already bloody had 2 try assists and fucking 3 line breaks in the game. What are your thoughts on the situation?
Yeah, nothing in it. You said it well when you mentioned it was just a calamity of poorly timed events, and particularly in terms of the Dragons players not rushing to whack him. There was a big gap between when he caught it, where it happened in the space between he and the Dragons defenders. So he saw it was a cramp. It happens.
Yep.
It gets you for about a second, can be longer. He straightened it out and then he took off. They had every chance to make that tackle. Yep. 2 players fell off him. And it was just, as I said, poor timing, but there was nothing in it. And Johnny Martin's got nothing to worry about. The Dragons' defence does have something to worry about.
Yeah, and I think also people are like, what about the next time? Look, I don't think this is going to be a regular occurrence. No. When 99% of the time, when a player stops like that, he's actually injured. So do I think that there's going to be this epidemic of players faking injuries and now we've got to deal with it? I don't think we're going to see this, maybe not in the next decade of watching rugby league. This is just everything that went wrong could go wrong. It did go wrong. What do you think, Matty?
Yeah, I agree. I think that was my initial concern as well. I looked at Origin and I saw the backlash Luai got for sledging Cobbo. Imagine if a player actually hurt an injured player. But after looking at it and I don't know Joey Manu, but judging him from the other side of the screen,
It's he's gone his whole career doing nothing wrong. Do you really think that he just doesn't have this integrity? He's
Especially
just a bad person.
When it's 40-26 or whatever it was, it's the end of the game.
Over.
He actually went off the field. I reckon it was just an unlucky thing that happened. Hopefully players don't see this and hopefully no one injured actually gets hurt, off the ball or whatever.
So.
But Surely not.
Well, if you're watching the background, you can see him as he tackles. Both of his legs go straight. He puts his legs straight out and his toes up, which is what you when you're cramping. That's what you do. Whereas if you're not cramping, you just get up normally. You bend your knees and you get up normally. So yeah, look. To be really fair though, I get if the Dragons fans are a bit pissed off. You're already losing the game and you're just like, oh fuck, are you serious? We're trying to do the right thing. So just everything that went wrong, everything that could go wrong for the Dragons in that situation did go wrong, unfortunately. But yeah, Joey Manu is not the type of bloke that I would. He doesn't need to. At that point, he already had like 2 or 3 line breaks and 2 try assists and a try or something. We'll talk about the Roosters quickly first though. Roosters, is Joey Manu the long-term 6?
It's so hard, isn't it?
It's so hard.
Because whatever they do, they have to find a way to get him more involved. You're dropping Sam Walker or Luke Keary to facilitate that. I think you can have both. It's so hard. I don't know. I'm glad I'm not in Trent Robinson's position because like he's way too good to be stuck out at centre. Even like I go down the whole roaming centre role, he's still too good to only be doing that. Like he just needs to be touching way more. So I don't know. Maybe do bite the bullet and just say, bring him into 5'8". Who you dropping from there? Have fun making that decision. But like if he was to make a big call and do that when Luke Keary comes back, this is so harsh on Sammy Walker because I'm one of his biggest fans. But as good as he's in attack, he still has a lot of defensive issues just because he's such a small body. So I don't know. Do you maybe bring him off the bench as an X factor later on in games and run with Keary, let him run the show, and Manu perhaps? It's tough.
I think.
What do you reckon, Matty?
Him and Teddy have been their best players at the moment, and I just think, again, I'm not going to sit here and say who should partner him, but I think he has to be the 5'8" because his best position is probably fullback, if not 5'8", but. You got Teddy there. I think for the Roosters, they've had they're 2 from the last. Sorry, they're 1 from the last 3. But I reckon they're close to the most informed team because they were great against the Panthers and they were great against the Eels.
Rough calls against the Panthers.
Exactly, they should have beat the Panthers and they absolutely smoked the Dragons on the weekend. And I think they're going to make a charge for the finals now for sure. And Joey Manu has been in the thick of that, and I just think their best chance of winning is. Joey Manu with his hands on the ball.
Yeah, look, I get things wrong all the time, but I've been a fan of Manu to 6 since before the season even started. I like the bigger body in around the ruck. I like the bigger body on the edge there. I think he adds a bit of staunch to defence, but also just that bigger body running the ball. Like, imagine as defence having to deal with Joey Manu every set.
Yeah, every
set. You're looking across and Joey Manu's sitting next to the ruck. You're going, fuck me. Like, and then on the other side, you got James Tedesco. I just think that the Roosters can't afford to not have him at 6. So I think that I would probably, if I'm the Roosters, I would probably maybe start Keary at 14 because he's had the head knocks this week. Start Walker at 7. And then rotate Walker and Keary or just see how it goes. But if Keary wasn't injured, I would sit down with Sam Walker and say, mate, we've had a real tough start to the year. We want to make a push for the finals. We need you to take one for the team this run. So we're going to put you at 14. You'll be able to learn your game. You'll be able to learn different parts of the game. You'll be able to learn how to impact from different areas. And then next year in the off-season, if I'm the Roosters, I would make some tough decisions.
Give him a few party pies, sausage rolls, bulk him
up. Well, with Walker, I would just put him. The only reason I would put him at 14, it has nothing to do with his ability. It has nothing to do with the future of any at all. All it has to do with is seniority. Like Keary has won premierships. We want to give him the first opportunity to partner because right now the club is in a position where Manu has to be in the halves. If they were in the position that they were yesteryear, like a couple of years ago, you could afford to go bring Keary and Walker back in and give them time to build that combination. But right now they need to make the 8 because if they don't make the 8, it's a disaster.
And what's unfortunate for say they do go with that option and Walker or Keary play as a 14, they're not really the Ben Hunt, DCE type blokes who can come on and play as a bit of a lock. Walker, because there's no way he can defend anywhere near the middle, and even just he's just too small. And Keary, because of his head knocks, you don't really want him playing, linking in through the middle of the field too often. So it's tough, but
it's a tough one. Yeah. And again, it has nothing to do with, like, they're both incredible, but when you've got a guy like Joey Manu, this is his stats: 2 tries, 2 try assists, 194 metres, 52 post contact, 15 tackle breaks, 3 line breaks, 2 line break assists. But here's the key: 14 tackles, 1 miss. So like, he's got everything, literally everything. Staunch as anything in defence. Like, who's running at Joey Manu in defence? He's 6'2", like 98 kilos, and he's still only 24, 25. I think he's 25 this year. So he's still, like, young as shit. God. Yeah, look.
He turned 26 a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, it's 26 a couple of weeks ago?
Yep.
So he's still got, what, at least another 6 years in him, minimum? That's taking him to 32. Yeah, look, I really like Manu at 6. I've always liked him in closer. I think I've said quite a bit on this podcast. And as I said, I'm wrong about a lot of shit. Fortunately, this one I've been right about. I think that he's the best centre in the world, and centre isn't even his best position. Obviously, Latrell's the best centre in the world when he plays centre. But I think Manu is in the same boat as Latrell. You can't afford to have these blokes. You can do it when you've got a team of superstars. You can afford to have him out there. But when you're not a team that's super stacked, like the Roosters aren't as stacked as they have been in yesteryear, you have to have him around the ruck. And him and Tedesco through the middle is a nightmare. Like, I agree with you, Matty. This Roosters side, playing the way they are right now, they can push for the premiership. And I know people laugh about it every week when I say Trent Robinson he's just tinkering. He's trying to find out what works for him. I think he may have found what works for them right now. And it's Manu at 6.
Yeah, the only thing, they got decimated with injuries on the weekend.
Oh, I know.
Tupanua, ACL season. Billy Smith, ACL season. Taukiaho, fractured cheekbone. Oh, I tell you what, they have not had any luck with injuries last couple of seasons.
They've had 11 ACL injuries in the last 5 years. Ooh. Incredible. And ACL, like, I spoke to NRL physio about it, and this is just a rough estimate of what he said. It's not. Go to NRL physio. He's got actually on his podcast, The Magic Sponge, he is going to detail ACL injuries and if there's what's going on in the Rooster situation. But he said it's like it can almost be luck. It can just be bad luck. You know, there could be a chance that it's loading or specific, but it also just could be luck. Because what's crazy for the Roosters, they're the most unlucky club ever, because in this exact game for the last 3 years, 2 ACLs in the same game.
Oh, yeah.
That's mental. So hopefully...
Poor old Billy Smith.
Oh,
it's his
mate.
Third ACL.
And unfortunately, when you do one ACL, it continues to increase the likelihood of more...
Fuck, they were both against St. George too.
Yeah.
Not
really,
that matters,
really.
But yeah.
Satilli, I felt like Satilli was really growing as a player this year. I think he's just getting better and better as the year went on. So, yeah, unfortunate for them.
Matty Lodge becomes very timely.
Oh, yeah.
Jeez, they'll need him.
They'll need him massively. But guys like Egan Butcher have just been waiting for a chance to start. And Nat Butcher, I wonder if he has either been injured or he comes back into the side. But, yeah, what's interesting is that Robson has been already playing with 2 utilities on the bench. So I wonder if he keeps doing that. So, yeah, Roosters, incredible win. Great win. Teddy, we've already spoken about him. Look, obviously those 2 injuries are massive, but I still reckon they might be able to make a late push. I really do. Because, like, you look at Billy Smith, you bring in... They've got Paul Momorowski. They've got Suwali that could push into the centres if he had to. You've got Kevin Nangama. You've got... there's another really good centre that they've got.
Even Adam Kieran's been playing a bit of centre for
Adam
them
Kieran.
and debutising pretty well for a half.
There's another really good centre that they've got that I can't think of. Anyway, so they've got that. They can cover that. Satilli, yes, a big loss, but Egan Butcher, I think, is a fucking good player. Like, is he Satilli? Not yet. He's still young. Then you've got Nat Butcher as well.
By the way, Nat did play on the weekend.
He did play for reserve grade?
No, he started.
first grade.
Because he was named on the bench, but he started.
He started in the front row.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he'll,
wow.
now that Satilli's gone, Butcher, I would imagine, will go to an 80-minute edge role.
And Lodge.
Lodge will play front row. Maria Hargraves is due back this week. His hammy injuries just dragged on and on and on. He nearly played on the weekend. I don't know if it was pulled out. I assume it was pulled out because he wasn't quite there. I hope he hasn't tweaked it, but there's no word that he has. So he should hopefully be back in this week. So they do get blokes back. Collins, obviously.
Yeah.
So they've got depth there, but, geez, they can't afford too many more injuries.
Like, think of that rotation. Collins, Hargreaves, Lodge, and then Tokiaho when he comes back. It's fucking great rotation. So, great win for the Roosters outside of those, injuries. Dragons. Thoughts on the Dragons, Timmy?
I said it was. The storyline was all around Ben Hunt again because what he did in that space, that 5 minutes with the 40-20 try assist, was exceptional. Outside of that, I don't know, I guess putting 26-odd points on is promising, but conceding 54. They're a team we've probably had a few mixed thoughts about on here each week with you and Guru not minding the Dragons. I still don't see it. They're too fluctuating form for me, and I'm just not convinced by them at all. Zachy Lomax was very good, had some great moments, some starring moments actually, but it's a pretty disappointing day out for them.
Yeah, and he has those starring moments, but then sometimes he throws like a flick pass.
He threw another one, didn't he, out the back to no one?
With Zachy, I'm just like, it's like the Kalen Ponga with Billy Slater. It's like, you are so big and powerful, just run. The flick will come. You'll feel it. It'll be there. Because it's the only thing holding him back. He's so skillful. He's so good as a player. It's a double-edged sword because if you take that out of his game, that's his weapon that he has. That he's probably got the best flick pass in the comp when it lands. So it's a tough one. It's a really tough one. He's so talented. Outside that, Sully injured early. I think was it HIA? Oh, actually,
I think it is ankle, Sully.
Yeah.
So
he's getting scans actually. Yep. But yeah, with the Dragons, I thought they're a bit wishy-washy. They come out and they play this really grindy, gritty style of footy, and you go, oh, okay, this is exactly the way Hook plays, and they seem to be buying in. The concern I have with the Dragons is like when you look at their forward pack, and maybe it's been due to injury, but like 1 week Jack Bird's a 13, then Bellin is, then someone else is, and I'm like, how do they build combinations if they don't just stick with a 13? Like I'd even consider Moses Mbai as a 13. Like just get him as a link man through the middle there.
Particularly Jack Bird, who is a bloke who's played in the backs his whole career. He's still learning the art of playing on an edge as a second rower, and then they keep throwing him at lock. Like Tarek Sims was out this week. Just stick to something.
Yeah, well, and Sims was locked the week before.
Like it's not a small move going from an edge back rower to a middle forward.
No, especially in today's game, with the 13, they're honestly vital to winning games and basically putting on points. If you don't have like a good lock forward linking, it's unless you're the Melbourne Storm that just play super high pace up the ruck, it's tough to put points on. Like it really is.
I watched this whole game. Of course, but like I was kind of, even though I watched it all, I was kind of shocked at full time when the Roosters were on 54 points because the Dragons were winning at halftime. And I'm pretty sure it was like 20 all or something in the 50th minute. And then the Roosters end up scoring 42 second half points, which is bonkers. So like they're inconsistent in games themselves.
Yeah, in games themselves. And that's the concern is like, how do you just have that many points just put on you? Like when a couple of weeks ago you were ruthless in defence. It's surprising, and I don't know what for that many points to be scored on you. Like there has to be a joint kind of like I guess switching off. Like you can't just be one player switching off. It has to be numerous players. Just looking at the error count, Roosters had more errors, conceded more penalties. It was just a bizarre, like, I mean, the one big stat that stands out to me is the Dragons missed 50 tackles, whereas the Roosters only missed 31.
I think the sin bin didn't help the Dragons either. Because Woodsy went off just after half time, and then they conceded a couple, and then they conceded one just after he'd come back on.
Yeah, that was for holding back. Was that holding back a player?
Yeah, Walker? Was it Walker?
Who got 10 in the bin again?
Aaron Woods.
Was it holding back a player on a break?
Yeah, I think it was almost a try scoring opportunity.
I mean, look, if that does explain the late blowout. Like, look at Queensland a few weeks ago. They got 10 in the bin. They hung on for that period, just like the Dragons did, and then they just late blowout. So that does explain the scoreline at the end for sure.
6 tries in 28 minutes.
Yeah, but that's a lot. Like, the same thing happened with Queensland though. They had quite a lot. So, look, maybe Dragons can look at it and chalk it up to the fact that they got a bloke in the bin and they just couldn't hang on. They just gassed out for the last 10 minutes, 15 to 10 minutes. It's very hard to get a read on the Dragons this year. It's very, very hard. I don't know where they'll land now. Like with the resurgence of the Raiders, Manly seem to be going well. Roosters are going okay. Rabbitohs, I don't see them making the 8 anymore. Whereas there was a period there where when the Rabbitohs were still struggling, Roosters were struggling, Manly was struggling, I was like, yeah, I think Dragons might actually be able to squeeze in here. But with the way the Rabbitohs are going and all those other teams I just mentioned, like Raiders getting a win over the Storm in Melbourne, I think it's going to be a tough ask to get the boys into the 8.
Geez, it changes quickly, the landscape, doesn't it?
Mate.
Like week to week,
Yeah.
it can just be turned on its head.
Well, like 6 weeks ago, Raiders were maybe fighting for a spoon.
Yeah.
Now they're beating Melbourne in Melbourne. Like, massive, massive win for the
And
club.
they're 1 win out of the 8, the Raiders.
And they're 1 win out of the 8. So what are the Dragons at the moment?
They're sitting equal with Canberra, 1 win out of the 8, but their for and against is horrendous.
Yeah. They go Manly, North Queensland. And so they almost like could be do or die against Manly, because if Manly beat them, then they go even more points ahead of
Big game.
Dragons. So it's a huge game for Dragons season. They go Manly and then North Queensland. So far out. Tough run for the Dragons. Would you say it's a disappointing year so far for the Dragons?
I didn't really rate them from the word go. So to be sitting around the 8 and be in finals contention,
Not too bad.
I mean, yeah, not too bad.
I think I had them smoky for 8.
Yeah, I remember we agreed. We were discussing Canberra or Dragons kind of slipping into that 8th role, and
Yeah.
we're getting pretty close.
And we're disappointed now, but you said they got Manly this week coming in a big game. If they come out and do what they did to Manly, what they did to South Sydney, all of a sudden it changes again.
Yeah, it's so true.
So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But with the way the Roosters have been playing and the Raiders, that 8th spot, very, very tough to get. It's crazy. It's so much. I mean, fuck. It was only last year where anything outside the 6 or even anything outside the 5 was like not good.
No chance.
Whereas now we've got some high quality teams playing for that 8 role. So hopefully they can bounce back. Apparently also there's been a meeting. There's going to be a meeting discussing Hook's future. Again, that's just reportedly. Do you think he gets extended? I mean, he got extended at the start of the year, but
I don't think he's done anything wrong this year to say he shouldn't. Like I said, they're fighting for the top 8 with an okay roster. It's not too bad.
what do you reckon, Matty?
Yeah, as long as he wants the job, I think yeah, he's done a fine job so far.
Can't knock him with the roster that he's got. And also, Ben Hunt is literally playing career best form. It's not a coincidence under Hook. He clearly works really well with Hook. Now on to the next game, Manly versus the Knights. Manly absolutely blow them out off the park. Thoughts on this game, Timmy?
Yeah, it was another story of the Origin backups in DCE. Well, we touched on him quite substantially earlier, but he was fantastic again, pulling the strings here, and partner in crime, Foz, was brilliant too. So really good to see them. Good to see Manly getting off the floor, because they're such an exciting footy team to watch when they're playing good footy, and they obviously had a lull and a slow start to the season, but starting to play some really a great brand of footy that says, if they sneak into it and finish 7th or 8th, you'd be scared to play them early on in the final series.
Yeah, Manly, they're looking pretty good. Like post Tom Trbojevic, where you thought, oh no, rails, it's going to go off the rails here. I will say that the slow start has really hurt them, because if they jagged 1 or 2 matches at the start of the year, they wouldn't be as desperate to get in the 8 right now. I think they're sitting 9th currently.
8th. They're sitting 8th.
They're sitting 8th, sorry. Whereas if they didn't start the year, I think it was like 0-4, was it? Or 0-3? Anyway.
I'll Google it, but yeah.
The Sharks were a good example. I know they've kicked back into gear, but the Sharks banked up those early wins, and it just gave them that cushion to have that lull in the middle of the season, whereas Manly, they're just constantly fighting for their life now. But I will say, far out, like, they're playing some really good footy for missing their superstar. DCE, we've already been over it, but he was outstanding. I want to give a shout out to Ruben Garrick. He has been so good at fullback. He's probably the most bang for buck fullback in the comp right now. Like, you've got Dylan Edwards, but I'd say Dylan Edwards would be on, like, what do you reckon, 400 or 500K? Whereas Ruben Garrick, he's probably on wingers, maybe 200 max. And yet he's putting up big.
Sorry, just on the Seagulls. That's right. They lost their first two, then they won 4 in a row, and then they lost another couple. So it was a bit up and down.
First two. Ruben Garrick, 2 try assists, 223 metres, 5 tackle breaks, 2 line breaks, 2 line break assists, 2 offloads, 7 tackles. He's just. I love his energy. I love the work he gets through. He's deceptively quick, deceptively strong.
He's carrying I think it's a hip pointer injury, but like it's quite substantial. It's causing him a lot of grief. So he's had to get injections to get through the games to the point that he didn't goal kick. He gave the goal kicking to Cherry Evans. He actually took the conversion at the end of the game, so he's able to do it. But if he's giving up goal kicking, it's clearly hampering him. But then he goes on to put in a performance like that where he runs for over 200 metres. This is for a bloke who, is essentially playing out of position, killing it.
Yeah, killing it. So important. Like, the fact, like, what's crazy is because we're so used to Tom Trbojevic numbers, we look at these numbers and go, oh, that's pretty good. But, like, those numbers at any other club are outstanding, like, absolutely outstanding. Garrick for me, huge.
Just on Garrick, I love that he had the balls to sledge Ponga as well, just before the game, after his Origin heroics, where he said, the reporter asked him about Ponga coming to Brookie, and Garrick's like, Suncorp Stadium's a bit different to your home fans at Brookvale Oval. I thought that was funny as. He backed it up.
I love the fact that, like, I want more banner.
100. I
want more banner because that's harmless. Like, it's not, like, Rookie isn't Suncorp. Like, that's not hurting no one. Like, it's a bit of fun. I totally agree. I love that from Garrick. Saab was back to his best. What about that try from 4 and down the edge, back into DCE? DCE, the no-look pop pass over his shoulder. Fuck me. Talk about silky. Holy shit.
And he's a team in sync, isn't it?
4 and for me, he is playing such good footy. He is easily playing the best footy that he's played since he left Manly, in my opinion. Yeah. Maybe there were some early games at Para Eels that he went all right, but 4 and for me, he's been fucking outstanding. He's so good. So good. He's so perfect for DCE. They complement each other so well. And when I watch them play now, I'm like, what could have been? If they could have somehow found a way to keep Foreign and DCE together for the last 10 years, I honestly think we might be looking at least another couple of premierships at Manly over the last decade, because they just getting better and better and better together. Like, imagine if they had Tom Trbojevic right now. Put it this way, this team had Tom Trbojevic right now, I honestly reckon they'd be a premiership threat. I really do.
Definitely would be. He's the best player in the competition at the moment, in my opinion. Throw that into that team. We saw what he did last year. Mate. It's a real shame for the comp, actually.
Absolutely. Massive shout out to my boy Andrew Davey, just running holes. He had a try assist, 131 metres, 41 post contact, a tackle break, a line break, and line break assist, 21 tackles, 0 misses. What a knock by a battler. And there was a bit there where he looked like he'd done his ankle or something. And I was like, oh no, he snapped his Achilles or whatever. But then he was sweet. I was like, what happened there? It was just out of nowhere.
He probably did, and he just brushed it off.
Yeah, you know what? He probably did. He sewed it back together. He's a teacher, isn't he?
I don't think it's official, but I'm pretty sure he's with Para next year.
Really?
Davey, yeah. Yeah, it's on the NRL.com website. He's just this year for Manly and nothing on Para, but there was a few rumours a couple of weeks ago that he'd signed with the Eels. So that'd be good for them.
Yeah, so look, great stuff by Manly. Desi Hasler, he's a good coach.
Real David Gower vibes about Davey.
The great David Gower.
And heading back to Para.
One of the greats, Gower. Just quickly, the Schuster situation. Like, are you getting a bit concerned currently? Because they just got rid of Foreign and it's to keep Schuster. And yet Schuster, not playing many minutes. He's come out as well and said that he won't be playing in the World Cup because he, reportedly anyway, because he needs his body to heal. So he must be struggling with injury, and he also wants to prepare for 6 next year. But I mean, if he's on the bench, he can play. Like, he's good enough to play and he's fit enough to play. Are you getting a bit weird vibes from this?
Yeah, well, we've seen when Cherry Evans missed a game or two this season in the past over the Origin period, and he's gone in and played 80 minutes in the halves. So while he's obviously carrying a bit of an injury, it's nothing too substantial. So firstly, credit to Desi Hasler for making a big call to be playing Schuster 10 minutes off the bench for Andrew Davey, little-known Andrew Davey, who's been sublime, and it's paying off, and Manly, as it stands, seem to be a better team as a result. In terms of Schuster, I don't know, he's just waiting for next year at this point. It
feels like that.
It's very weird. Well, because he knows he's got the half spot next season, but, you know, unless he really is battling with whatever this is it shoulder or what's he?
Honestly don't know.
Yeah.
Honestly don't know.
Very odd.
But it just seems strange because, like, although we love my man, Andrew Davey, and he's playing some great footy, you would think that, you know, Schuster surely could do as good as Davey, and you're preparing for the future. You want Schuster, if Schuster is your guy, building the club around him for the next 10 years or whatever, surely you want to be him playing as many NRL minutes as possible. Like, you don't want him going into next year not feeling like he's a out-and-out first grader. You want him feeling like, I've played a bunch of first grade, I'm fully ready for this, to move into 6. Whereas, like, when you look at him, you know, Schuster now, I'm trying to look at his games played. He's only played 30 NRL games. And for the last few weeks, probably adds up to, like, when it comes to 80-minute games, he might have played, like, 2.
Yeah, so he's played 2 80-minute games this year, and his last 3 games coming off the bench, he's played 22 minutes, 18 minutes, 10 minutes.
So you're looking at, like, maybe 25 appearances. And so by the end of the year, let's say he gets to, like, 30, if you consider the fact that he's only come off the bench. That's a big call to bring in a bloke that's only played 30 NRL games, you know, minutes-wise, to be your 6, to lead the club. Thoughts?
Yeah, it is. Look, I think we've seen the undeniable talent in Josh Schuster, that it's not going to be a concern, and that maybe they are thinking, let's get him fully fit and ready to go, so that he's bypassing the World Cup to get his off-season surgery and get himself right. So I don't think it's a concern, but it's far from ideal, isn't it?
It's just strange. It's strange, like how you go from making this huge call, for and going, then you say Schuster's a 6, but then all of a sudden Schuster's minutes just, like, drop.
And we talk about him not getting minutes. In this side, he can be an elite player in the halves. He can be an elite player on the edge in second row, as we've seen this season. And he could be an elite player as that ball-playing lock roll. Yeah. Yet he can't get a start. So Andrew Davies obviously the name that stands out there. But in a great sign for Manly, the blokes ahead of him, Foran, DCE, Jake Trbojevic, Hamole Olakuatu. So...
like, even Dylan Walker's getting more minutes than him.
Yeah. So they've got these guns in his... You can play 3-4 different positions. With Davey obviously being a bit of an outlier there. He's been superb.
Yeah. So, look, you're right. It's good signs for Manly. I just thought it was really interesting. It's not to question, you know, whether Schuster will be good next year. I think he will. It's just a really strange... Usually in clubs, when we see these huge calls be made, they go all in with them and they're getting them on the field as much as possible. But... yeah, interesting to see how they handle that. But I tell you what, if Schuster can reach the heights that we know he can, oh my God, he will be unstoppable. Yeah. Absolutely unstoppable. Now, on to the Newey Knights. Kalen Ponga runs for 200 metres a try, 37 post-contact, 5 tackle breaks. Thoughts on the Newey Knights?
I'm running out of thoughts and things to say about the Newey Knights because they just keep letting me down. I don't say that as a supporter because I'm not a Knights supporter, but... I always had a bit of a soft spot for them, and I just really thought they could throw up more this season. And all right, they've had excuses because they've had a lot of injuries throughout the year, but they've got their full strength forward pack back. Like Clemmer, Brayley, Saifiti, Frizzell, Bunnett, like they're stacked with forwards, and they still go down and get absolutely belted. Jaden Brayley returned last week in his first game back from injury, and I thought he was fantastic. Like, what do you say about them? They're just week in, week out, they're not just getting beaten, they're getting pummeled by sides.
Yeah, and it's not like Manly are just this superpower right now, just blowing teams off the park. Like, Manly are playing some good footy, but you would have thought Newey Knights could have definitely put it to them. You know, when you've got a front row of Clemmer and Saifiti and just...
Yeah, obviously they were disappointing, but I think it was kind of similar to the game before as well. Like, it was pretty close. I think the halftime score, Manly were winning 14-6, and then the Knights scored the first try of the second half. And then obviously they had a man in the bin, and I think Frizzell got injured, Young got injured, and someone else got injured, and then Manly blew them off the park in the last half an hour.
They did lose a lot, yeah.
Yeah, I'm feeling you. I'm feeling you, but I'm like, your season's on the line. You're desperate. I don't know. I just 42-12. Like, for example, we go, oh, someone was 10 in the bin. But it's like, well, why did they do that then? Like, why did they make the mistake that got them 10 in the bin? Like, the best teams tend to avoid those situations. They don't make those, like, the player that made the error, who got 10 in the bin again?
Milford.
And it was for holding back just before halftime?
Just before the break.
And it's like, why did you feel the need to do, you know what I mean? Like, I think that at the better clubs, like, I don't know what the numbers are, but like, I think, is it Penrith have the least amount of 10 in the bins in the comp? Anyway, like, I just think that, like, even if you were to look, like, the Dragons had a crucial sin bin, the Knights have a crucial sin bin, and you look at that and you go, well, that, like, those little areas, like, it's not an excuse because they're the ones that caused it. They're the ones that made the mistake that got them. And also, these aren't like touch and go things. These are holding people back. It's like, we all know you're going. We all know that you are going to the bin if you do that. So, oh, man. Is there, like, are they going to stick with Adam O'Brien, do you think? I think they should, but I understand the pressure now.
Yeah. I think they will. I think they'll, based off some finals appearances the last few seasons, they'll probably give him one more season. But put it this way, if they do and they get to around 10, 12 next season, around this time this year where the coaches started being flicked off and the Knights are 2-8 or something, well, he'll be gone because...
Yeah. Agree.
I think you give him until round 10 next year and you be honest with him, you be open with him, you say, mate, got to around 10, we'll review everything then. But fuck, it's tough. He has brought the club, like, they've managed to recruit so well. Did you end up finding the 10 in the bin thing?
No, sorry.
No, it's all good. No, it's all good. No stress. Yeah, look. Who's out there that could coach a team like the Newey Knights, you know? There's just not that many coaches out there.
No. I mean, we look at the teams looking for coaches at the moment. The Tigers went to a bloke who hasn't coached.
Warriors bought another bloke that hasn't coached.
So
Doggies can't find anyone
on the market. There's obviously not a lot.
Yeah, it's tough, man. I mean, some positives is Kalen Ponga running for 200 metres coming back is really good. I think David Clemmer is playing some really, really good footy, really impressive footy. I love his aggression. I love him, in a tough time for the club. He's really putting his hand up when they need a guy to go forward. He's the guy that does it. Like, look
69 minutes in the middle.
And he's a massive, massive unit. 154 metres, 62 post contact, 3 tackle breaks, an offload, 31 tackles, only 1 missed. And he's doing that week in, week out. So definitely deserves raps for that. But I'm just trying to see, like, the tough thing with the Knights is that when I look at the game, I don't know what exactly stands out that, like, isn't working for them. You know what I mean? Like, I can't pinpoint one thing and go, like, if there is one thing, it's like probably their energy. Like, they don't seem to have the same kind of, like, if I was to compare their energy to, say, the Penrith Panthers' energy, it's quite a substantial difference. Like, I don't often see for 80 minutes the Newcastle Knights crazy line speed. They just don't seem to have that same energy. I don't know whether that's to do with their training.
Is the pack too big or something with your Clemmer, your Saifidi boys, Frizzell, Barnett? Is there, like, do they need to go for a more agile pack? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, that's probably clutching at straws, but I'm with you. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what the answer is. I really don't. I really don't. I mean, a positive, even though he only got 41 minutes, was it a head knock he got taken off with? Dominic Young, he's improved week in, week out. I think he's been really, really good. Obviously, this weekend wasn't that good, but weeks before that, he's been great.
Give Matty Johns a grilling on Friday and just say, mate, Knights, what's doing?
What's doing?
Relay that information back here.
Mate, I'll bring it. I'll get him. I'm going to get a recording. I'm going to film him and say, mate, tell the punter and the dribbler what's doing with the Knights. But positive is Jaden Brayley gets another game under his belt. Hopefully they can turn it around.
And you're right. Penrith Panthers have had one sin bin all year.
Yeah, and look, I understand some people go, well, that's because they're favoured or like they're the favourites or whatever. But facts are facts. Yeah. Like, they're the number one team. they haven't had 10 in the bin because they don't make those errors. Now, on to the match of the round. Broncos versus the Titans, or Titans versus Broncos, should I say. Oh, it's a famous win. It's a famous win. We're missing all our stars, still got the job done. I actually feel really bad for the Titans. I thought they fucking ripped right in. This is the Titans that I was expecting was going to be playing for the year. Now, yes, were we missing some, big players? For sure. No doubting that. But I thought the Titans' defense was outstanding. The Broncos had them on their line plenty of times, and they refused to give in. They refused to budge. I think the Titans can take a lot out of it, and I think that they've set themselves a standard now, and this is the standard going forward. With the Titans as well, me and the great Gurino have been saying it for an age and a day, but I think Aaron Clark at 13 was outstanding.
Oh, he was great.
And I think that, we've been saying all year, we really like what Aaron Clark has to offer, but we don't feel like he's a 9. And I think on the weekend proved it. He had the freedom to play the way he wants to play. I think you keep Aaron Clark at 13. You put Tino and Fodawaker as your front rowers, and that's your starting pack with Fafita and Bo Firma on the edges. Aaron Clark was outstanding, 157 metres, 33 post contact, 8 tackle breaks, 1 line break, 32 tackles, 2 offloads. He was constantly threatening the Broncos, and I think that he suits the modern 13 perfectly. He's a bit of a utility. Yeah. He's got ball playing. He's really dangerous. He's explosive. His first 10 metres are quick. I really like him at 13, and I really hope that they stick with him at 13 and allow him time to build a combination with Sexton. I also want to give Sexton a massive rap. Kicked for 589 metres, got a bunch of repeat sets, scored a couple of try assists off kicks. I thought that it was probably the closest all year that Toby has come to an 80-minute complete performance. Now, I know they didn't win, but I think that was more to Broncos are just on another level now than they were last year. I think there's a lot to be happy for if you're a Titans fan after watching that game. Now, it's just about whether they can do it week in, week out. Thoughts, Timmy?
Yeah, he and even Tana Boyd in there, I thought Boyd and Sexton combined quite well for players who... I don't think they would have played a lot of footy together, would they? Maybe knock a reserve grade or something at stages, but...
Tanner Boyd was like the next big thing coming through. And then he went to the Titans from the Broncos. He's at the Broncos, goes to the Titans, and for some reason, like, they try to turn him into a 14, and then all of a sudden he gets a chance in the 6 with Toby, and it looks like, you know what, this is a pretty good combo.
Yeah, wow, who saw that coming?
Yeah. It was the best 7 coming through. It was the best half coming through.
And I thought there's some promising signs for the Titans. A shame, obviously not for Broncos fans, but for the Titans and the long-suffering Titans fans in recent years that they didn't get a win there, because it would have done a world of good for their confidence. But yeah, great signs. And on the Bronx, we knew they'd sort of turned a corner big time this season, very obvious to see with their results, but it was about, all right, now we've got a stack of players picked for the Maroons again, going through this origin period, like brighter times for the Broncos at Red Hill. How are they going to get through this period? And they've done it with 3 out of 5 wins. The losses came against the Storm and the Cowboys. The Storm game in particular was a mammoth performance. They won both games, I think, when their team was depleted, against the Dragons and Titans, and then the big win over the Raiders where they lost players mid-game. I think there was a few rested as well. So just such a huge tick for the Broncos' depth.
So 3 famous wins.
3 famous wins.
Especially against the Raiders.
Oh, matey, let's go. But it just shows that their depth is where it needs to be. The organisation is just such on and up to get through this period, and good luck to them, because that's another huge win.
For sure. Matty, Titans, thoughts on the Titans?
Yeah, I thought they were... Their first half, I was pretty disappointed for them that they conceded a try right on the buzzer there, because they defended that first half superbly. Second half, a couple of costly errors led to some Brisbane points, but I mean, it was a far better performance to what they've thrown up in the last few months. So
12 errors compared to the Broncos' 6.
Yeah, and they were pretty costly errors as well. I think I saw Holbrook after the game saying it's the closest you can play a game of footy without winning. So they did need a win, but I think they just needed a good performance.
Yeah, so. As I said, I think they can take a lot out of that performance. They should, be extremely happy with it. If they cut their errors down, they probably win the game. They probably win the game. And the game was in the balance all the way to the death, pretty much. So, yeah, I don't think they should be hanging their head in shame at all. I think as well, I would say I would love for them to find a way for Jaden Campbell to be in the side. Is he injured still? Or is there
He's still injured, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
He had an 8-weeker.
Okay, so he's still injured.
Yep.
Look, the season's essentially over. I think you stick with Sexton, you stick with Boyd, you stick with Booth, and you see what works. Like, if that gels and begins to work, then boom, there you go. Like, you can, Boyd can go to 14 next year when Foran gets there, but at least he's got more footy under his belt. Because, like, as it stands, they don't really have a proper 14. Like, Aaron Clark was named at 14, but they don't really have, I'm trying to think, like, is there a 14 utility that is, like, perfect for that role yet? Not really. I think Aaron Clark...
No, well, they had Will Smith.
But
and then he's gone.
Yeah. I think he's retired, isn't he? Well, he left. He left.
He had to go back to New South Wales.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I think that next year you can have a guy like Tanner Boyd as your 14, learning off Foran. I definitely hope they keep Clark at 13. He was outstanding at 13. And you have Tino and Fodawaker starting. Like, Tino and Fodawaker as your front rower starting, that's as good as any front rower in the comp. Like, that can go toe-to-toe with even the best. Like, that could go toe-to-toe on their day with Fisher Harris and Leota.
He was good Mo as well on the weekend.
Yep.
One of his best games in a while.
Yep. 189 metres, 67 post contact, 3 tackle breaks, 2 offloads. So really, really good for the Titans. I'm happy to see that there's light. There seems to be light there. It's just a matter of cultivating it now. Holbrook, there was rumours that he was Gonskis. Do you think that he deserves another year of coaching?
I think I touched on it last time when we spoke about in depth about 2 weeks ago and how his job security should be. And I still want to know how much of a say over the roster he had and the recruitment. And you would imagine a fair bit, but and how much guys like Mal Meninga had a say in it, because I really just don't think their roster is very good. And I think it's hard work asking him to get a lot out of it this season. So if his blueprints are all over it and he's been responsible for it, then I would have big question marks over him.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure how that's all panned out.
Yeah. I think I just want to see another year. Like, everything hasn't gone right from this year. I want to see another year because they did make the finals last year. I reckon give him another year for sure. Now, onto the Brizzy Broncos. Tessie New, outstanding. Another great game. What's crazy is, like, we're getting to a point now where, like, Reece Walsh might rock up to the club and be pushing to the start. Like, it's insane to think. Again, right now, obviously, Reece Walsh walks into the side, but Tessie New has been phenomenal this past few weeks. Ever since he come back from injury, our wingers, Jordan Pereira, Hoyter, like, those are 2 backup wingers. Like, we have Corey Oates and Selwyn Cobbo that are our main guys. Like, just amazing. Ezra Mam was great. Reynolds really kicked into gear in that second half. It's almost like he said, all right, I've had enough, and he just started putting on a string. I can't believe how quickly things have turned around. The Broncos old boys, not me, but like the actual proper old boys, I don't know, like some people, they get a bit of slack for how much pressure that they put on the club to get in an old boy coach and Kevy Walters. But I'd have to say, the Broncos old boys were right. They knew what the club needed. It needed a club legend that knew what that jersey meant to them and knew what standard that you needed to be at to play in a Broncos jersey. Because, like, is this roster really that much different from last year's? Like, no, it's not. But it seems like every player now that puts on a Broncos jersey understands that there is a standard that you have to meet to put that jersey on. And they're delivering. Another shout out to Zach Hosking. Fuck, he's good. He's a battler and he just gets through his work. He's not too flash, but he somehow seems to break the line. He sometimes seems to break the tackles. He had 6 tackle breaks in his second game. 144 metres, 35 tackles. I thought Jordan Riki also had a really good game for like one of his better games. Hosking has been outstanding though. Like, the Broncos just look so good. Like, when they get their full squad back, next year, I really think next year could be a special year for the club. Like, I really think they could push for something, especially with Ezra Mam, another preseason under his belt. I mean, Ezra Mam, he may not even have done a whole preseason this year. That's how young he is. So, really exciting times for the Broncos. Really, really exciting times. Anything else to say about the Bronx?
Adam Reynolds, 2,000 points.
Yeah, 2,000
Yeah.
points. Fuck, it must sting you as a Rabbitohs fan seeing him just fucking absolutely kill it.
Literally kills me every time I shut my eyes.
And Reynolds was the difference again in that
Yeah.
second half. He would he's decided a lot of games by himself this season, and this was just another one of that tally.
Yeah.
Is there a spot for Hosking on the bench when all the big guns return or not? He's been very good.
Look, I tell you what, I think that he's putting pressure on Ricky. Like, I really think he is. So, big guns come back. Yeah, look, I don't think Ricky's been poor by any stretch, but Hoskins has been outstanding.
Yeah.
Like, outstanding. He's impacting games. He's making huge plays in his second game of NRL. Imagine what he can do in 5-6 games. So, I actually think, him or Ricky will find them a place on the bench for sure. Like, there's no deny. Like, even like both of them on the bench in this, like, as in they're so good that you can't keep them out of the side. So, I actually think that you'll either find Ricky or Hosking on the bench, and I think they'll probably take Reece Kennedy's spot.
Sorry, Cape will come back and start on one edge. Who's the other edge back rower?
Well, Ricky.
Ricky.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then could Hoskins be the edge back rower off the bench?
Yeah, well, either Hosking starts over Ricky and Ricky goes to the bench. But what I meant by they could both be on the bench is I both think that they are so good that you could play them both off the bench.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? You could play Ricky through the middle if you had to. And even Hoskins, he seems like a real battler. So I think that they would probably take Kennedy's spot. I've got to say, Tyson Gamble coming off the bench in that 13 role, I thought he did a bloody good job. I think he suits. I didn't know if he had the size for 13, but I think he's been pretty good the last couple of weeks when he's played there.
Just finds a way to do a job, old
Mate,
Gamble,
he
doesn't
bloody oath he does. He just finds a way. He had a try assist when he come on. And when he doesn't have the pressure of like being the main playmaker, he can just take the runs if he wants to. Look, it's exciting. Like when you think about the fact that they get Payne Haas, Corey Oates, Paddy Carrigan, Kurt Catewell, Selwyn Cobbo, all back into that side, it becomes a bloody good side, like a really good side. So really, really good stuff from the Broncos. So proud of the boys. Like to get a win like that with so many troops out just shows you, if you ever needed an example of how far we've come as a club, that's the game to watch. Because even with our full strength team last year, we're probably losing that game by fucking 20. So amazing stuff.
If you said at the start of the year that the Bronx will come out of the Origin period with the same wins as Melbourne Storm, you're both sitting on 11 wins right now. What would you say? No chance.
Me. I'd say not a chance. Not a chance. I'll be honest, I thought that I'd finish around the 10th mark. I really did. I did not see them making this drastic improvement so quickly. So credit to that whole organisation, absolutely killing it.
Maddie, can you just stop fueling that fire, please, mate?
Yeah, sorry, what am I doing?
Now, on to Tigers Panthers. I was interesting. Noddy came out, or Kamali came out and said it was disrespectful for Panthers to rest their players, but it's like they still won. Like, fuck, I don't know. Like, I get what Kamali is saying. Like, they felt disrespected. Like, you know, they can just rest them and still get the win. Ivan Cleary did come out and say it doesn't matter who we were playing, we were going to rest them. But the Panthers to get a win like that with with 7 starters out,
Yep.
fuck. Pretty bloody good. Pretty bloody good.
If you don't want to be disrespected, then start winning some games of footy and give them a reason to play. They're some more guns. Like, to lose the game and say that,
It was
makes,
strange. It was
I
a bit
love
strange.
Brett Kamali, I do, but
100%.
that was just so off the mark.
It was, it was. So, I didn't get it. It's like, but like, I'd understand if you won, then you come in and go, yeah, we felt disrespected, so we fucking went out there and gave it to them.
I've been super critical in the past of Ivan Cleary backing players up from Origins and late in the season when he's had chances to give them rest. It's like, give them a break. He plays them every game. Finally, he came out and said, no, you've had a massive Origin period. Sit out. We don't, whether they won that game or not, they didn't need it. I thought it was fantastic from him, finally.
Yeah, Ivan Cleary, man. I swear he flies under the radar as a great coach. Like, think of the dominance. Like, if he wins another comp, like, so Trent Robinson's won 3.
Yeah.
Ivan Cleary wins another comp, that's 2. And then he's taken the Warriors to a grand final. Like, I know it's not the same dominance yet as Roosters, 13, 14, 15 minor premierships and that. But if they win another comp, we have to start putting Ivan Cleary in some conversations with the better coaches. Like, I'm not saying that he's in the same breath as Bellamy, as, Bennett, as Robinson. But I also don't think he's as far away. Like, if there's that group there, and then you could maybe even slip Desi Hasler in there if you wanted to. And then if there's another group, Ivan's probably in his own lane right now. Like, what other current coach has the same, record as Ivan does?
Yeah, well, in terms of a short-term stint, it'll go down in history what he's done with the Panthers. Even say they make a grand final this year.
But, he took the Warriors to a grand final. Look what the Warriors have done since then.
Yeah, so I think longevity-wise, he's still got a bit of a ways to go to match even like your Desi Haslers and a few others. But for the most, the team that he's inherited at Penrith off the back of some long-term planning at the club has been fantastic, and that makes life a lot easier. I think what's most impressive for me is Ivan's ability to get them up every single week and not drop games.
Yeah.
That's pretty unheard of in the history of rugby. Even the Melbourne Storm, for Penrith to drop, one game this season, 2 seasons back in 2020 when they got done in the grand final, they dropped a couple there.
It was during Origin. That was the only time.
And then they won the comp last season. So I just don't know how they get up every week without giving up games.
It's I'm in no way saying that Ivan is in that conversation yet with those guys. But what I'm kind of getting at is that I feel he doesn't get the respect he deserves. When we talk about the best coaches in the comp, I know he won the Dally M, but is he brought up with your mates much as a great coach?
Nah.
Matty?
Nah, never. Not compared to Trent Robinson. And I think it's not outrageous to compare Panthers 2020 to 2022 to Roosters 2013 to 15.
Really?
I don't think it's outrageous. The Roosters won in 2013. They won the minor premiership all those years. Panthers in 2020 won the minor premiership, didn't win the comp, won the premiership last year. If they make another grand final this year, I reckon it's definitely worth the conversation.
Yeah, I just think that what they've managed to build there, because you have to remember Ivan was there when they were putting all those plans in with those young guys coming through.
Ivan was there as well from 2012 to 2015, and they made the top 4 one of those years. They didn't go great the rest of the years, but that's still the best they've gone since 2004. Before that,
and the Warriors, one of probably the toughest team to coaches. Took them to a grand final, a grand final.
Yeah, that's remarkable from what we've seen over the years with the Warriors, what they've dished out. That's about as good as it gets with coaching, isn't it?
Absolutely. So I don't think he's in the combo yet, but I tell you what, if they win the comp this year, you start going, wow, do we have one of the next best coaches on our hands here? Because he's got plenty of years left in him. He's got the best 7 in the competition by a substantial margin, at club footy at least. I just don't think he gets enough raps for what he's created there, because he had a big hand in all the development. He was there, 2012 onwards or whatever. So the Panthers, super impressive. Dylan Edwards definitely had the start of the game. Dylan Edwards was outstanding, especially at the start of the game.
Sorry, just one more thing on Cleary. I just looked this up. His stint at the Warriors, keep in mind, they've made the finals once since 2012, right? Before that, Ivan Cleary was the coach. They made the finals. They made the grand final in 2011. They made the finals in 2010. They made the prelim in 2008, and they made the top 4 in 2007, all with Ivan Cleary.
Yeah, yep. That's what I don't think he gets the raps that he kind of deserves. Because, when you think about it, look how much the Warriors have struggled without him as a coach, massively. So I think he deserves a lot of raps for what they're doing. Anyway, back to the Panthers boys. I thought Dylan Edwards was outstanding, as he always is. Honestly, Mr. Reliable. I thought their kicking game in the first half really hurt them. I thought the second half was disgusting to watch. That hurt the eyes. And I've been part of plenty of bludgers. I've been the reason for bludgers. So there's no denying that I can do that as well. But watching it with those errors, just constantly back, error. It
was annoying because we finally got a hot day in Sydney.
Yeah.
And they kept making errors.
Just penalty, drop ball, that, just crazy, just back and forth. But yeah, so the Penny Panthers, Viliami kick out. I feel like he's gone under the radar this year. But he is, I honestly think that without him, a lot of the Panthers' points of attack, Like, that's where when they're struggling to find something, they just go to William kick out, and he'll do something crazy. He's been outstanding. I feel like he's flown under the radar for some reason. I almost feel like we've gotten used to how good he is. Like, he just continues to deliver over. I think he's going to be a great pickup for the Dogs. The key for that, though, is he has to be used. If he goes there and he doesn't have a half, it'll be, it's like the Fafita situation. Everyone wants to lay blame at Fafita, but it's like your wide running forward can only do as much as... Imagine Fafita getting the same quality ball that Kikau gets. So, the problem with Kikau going to... Not problem. The concern is like... And Burton will be able to, but they're just got to make sure they can create the same space that Panthers do for Kikau. He was probably my man of the match, actually.
He's become such a well-rounded player. Like he used to be, when he was raw and younger, this just powerful ball-running player, and that was, largely the extent of his game, which is fine. It was early in his career. He now has... his passing game is incredible. Like, the timing of it. His catch and pass is excellent. He has a little grubber in behind the line that goes with it as well. He can do everything. So, imagine a defender rushing up in his face to to stop his momentum and stop him running over the top of you. With the risk of, if you do it, he can tip on, he can grubber in behind you.
It's
how do
amazing.
you defend that?
You literally can't. He is almost the perfect dangerous wide running forward because in any scenario he can kick, he can pass, and he can bump you. Yeah. It's just
take your pick.
Literally. Fisher Harris, I thought he led from the front. Played 70 minutes. 70 minutes in the middle there. Fisher Harris, after the year that he's had, he was immense. 164 metres, 38 tackles. But yeah, look, their kicking game hurt them a little bit. For example, Sean O'Sullivan only kicked for 255 metres. Whereas Cleary, you're looking at 400 or 500 minimum. Dewey, for example, kicked for 517 metres, and Luke Brooks kicked for 131 on the other team, whereas Sullivan only kicked for 255 and Kurt Falls only kicked for 44. So you're looking at that's half of what the Tigers kicked. I thought Taylor and May and Tungor had probably, a few errors they don't usually have. But outside of that, Tungor had 2 line breaks, 140 metres still. Taylor May 140 metres. Staines, he had 100. I thought he was actually pretty good, nearly 200 metres, 8 tackle breaks. So it's just such a good representation of a quality club getting a win with all those players out. It really is, just shows you how good they are. On to the Tigers. Now, we'll speak first about Hastings at 13. I said this before the game, that I think in attack he'll be fine. Absolutely. And I think that he can go out and have a great game, which he did. He was incredible. But I actually think towards the end of the game, he probably moved into the half position. My concern is doing that week in, week out. Because look at their stats. A try assist, 161 metres, 2 tackle breaks, 2 offloads, 41 tackles. I don't want Hastings. And he only missed 1, which is incredible. Such a good knock. He was amazing, Hastings. But the thing is, though, I don't want Hastings making 40 tackles a game, because eventually, he might be good next week, the week after that. Can he do that for the next 3 years? I don't know. I don't want him to do that. He's so good in attack. Why would I want him doing all that work in defence? But he was incredible. Thoughts on the Tigers?
Yeah, I like the move, and you're spot on. It just seems like a real short-term play. You don't see the longevity in it, do you? And he'll do whatever the team needs him to, Jacko Hastings, but you can't see him wanting to do that long term. And he's so important that they retain him at that club. We know there's a bit of conjecture over his future. I think more to the point, it was okay yesterday, that system. They've just been so one-dimensional in attack this year, the Tigers, and they've got someone like an Alex Twile or a Joe Offingowie playing lock, who both had great years in their own right, but we keep saying each week how the game's moved towards needing a ball-playing lock. It just gives them such another dimension in attack and more options, more creativity. The ball movement across the field, to have him in between the halves, linking them up. They just look more threatening.
Way better.
And it'll take time. So maybe Jackson Hastings isn't the bloke for that long term, but I think they need to find a way or get a player in to be that ball-playing lock, because they looked a lot better.
Oh, I totally agree. Look, put it this way. If his body can cop it and he loves it and he wants to be a lock, he's gun. He's the perfect guy for it. He was amazing yesterday. He was so important. Ran for a bunch of meters. But I just worry. Like, I don't want him making 41 tackles. Like, what do you got there, Matty?
I'm just going to ask you, is it kind of like the Jake Trbojevic situation? You talk about it.
I was literally just about to bring it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a Jake Trbojevic where he's just getting through so much work that we lose the finesse of him. Now, add that, times that by 10, because Jake Trbojevic is a big, big boy. We're talking about Hastings here, who, you know, he might be 92 kilos, 6'1" max, probably 6 foot. No, not even 6'1", he'd be 6 foot. That's it. And getting through that, I just worry about, can he do that week in, week out? I just don't know if he can.
Like,
if he can, it's a huge future for the Tigers' spine.
Yeah, like, is there a way that maybe you can, if they do want to persist with that move, just defend him at like on an edge and maybe say bring Tuolangi into the middle just to make that 40 tackles, 25 tackles or something. Because the mobility on the edge I think could only help. That being said, they'll still go at him a lot, but you know,
I wonder whether, it's a good point. Could you like bring in a crazy good defensive centre that just has good hands or whatever, and then you just chuck him out to the centre position
in defence
each set, or he can just go there when he needs it. But who knows? Look, you're right. Like, maybe he can do it. Maybe he's fine. He'd be sweet. I thought Adam Doueihi was outstanding. Fuck, he's good. I love his competitive nature. I love it. That's why I look at him like, fuck, him and Hastings are the future. Like, you can build a club around them. 6 and 7, him and Doueihi.
With Appy at 9.
With Appy at 9, that's a massive win. And then you can recruit in a solid 13 that can ball play. And then you've got Papali'i on the edge.
Yeah. Fuck, there's a bit to look forward to.
Yeah, there's a lot. Like, Tigers fans, I'd be excited. You know, and like, so, yeah, it was a tough loss, obviously, to a Panthers team that was missing heaps of players, but let's be real, like the roster, unfortunately, the Tigers right now just isn't the best in the comp. But whereas you bring in an Appy and you bring in Papali'i, you got 6 and 7 of Doueihi and Hastings most likely, depending on what Brooks does. It's exciting. That's exciting for me. And I also think, you know, bringing Appy in will bring out the best in Dane Laurie. Like, I think that will bring more out of him as well. So, tough loss, but I thought we saw some shades of some future there for the Tigers. Now on to the next game.
Just before we go, I forgot to put this in the notes. We should probably talk about the coaching situation at the Tigers.
Yeah, look, really interesting one. I don't mind the plan. I think, you know, it's a decent plan. You get Sheens in there to mentor a guy like Benji or Farah. The only concern I have is, and it's my concern all the time with the Tigers, is I don't know why they be so public about their plans. Because when you put your plan out there, all you're doing is putting pressure on yourself. So it's like, you can have that exact same plan, keep it internal, because now, like, what's going to happen is, what if in 2 years Benji goes, I don't enjoy this? Not to say that he will, like, at all, but just in a world where it happens, he says, I enjoy this. Now all of a sudden, the Tigers fans are like, what the hell? You said he was going to be a coach, rah, rah. What I don't understand is, like, you don't need to put that information out there. You could just say, Tim Sheens is going to be a coach. Farah and Benji are going to be under there. Maybe he can mentor them. Maybe not. We'll see what happens, and we'll continue to look elsewhere if we have to. Instead of, like, coming out and literally saying, we have signed Benji Marshall on a 5-year deal. The first 2 years are Sheens, the next 3 years are Benji. It's a lot of pressure on Benji and everyone. And look, Benji will eat it up, but it's just like, when you talk about unnecessary decisions, in my opinion, I think it's a great plan. I just think that the public nature of it, it's like, doesn't need to happen like that.
Yeah, and they'll say that maybe the point of it is transparency with their fans in the game, and they wanted to do that, but it's like, do you really need to? What does it achieve? Yeah. It just creates potential future headaches. So many things can change.
What if Farah wants to be coach?
Yeah.
Now there's infighting between Benji and Farah. You know, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just so many things can go wrong.
What if in the next 2 years Farah turns out to be a gun assistant coach, and they start going, oh, well, maybe Farah's the man in 2 years' time? Like, they're both extremely rookie coaches. They've done none of it, basically, except for bits and pieces. So what if Farah becomes the man? And they've already gone out on a limb and said, no, it's going to be Benji. So it's very, very Tigers management, isn't it?
But in their defence, and I get what you're saying, is like transparency for the fans. In that light, it's good. You're telling the fans what the plan is. And I'm sure, you know what, I bet you we've got a bunch of Tigers fans that appreciated the transparency. And they're like, you know what, we know what the direction of the club is. We can see it. We agree with it. Let's go. So I definitely can see it from that perspective. I just think that you just don't know. Like, footy is a week-to-week thing. To be saying what's going to be happening in 3 years, it's a that's a big play. But I don't mind it. Now, Benji, like, being a coach, it's a tough gig. It's a tough gig. And I have no doubts that he could be a good coach because, like, he's a leader of men. People respect him, and he knows the game. He knows the fabric of the game. The only thing I worry about is Benji personally, like, as in, will he enjoy it? I hope he does, but you just don't know. Like, you just don't know. I hope he does, though, because imagine that. Imagine club legend Benji Marshall leads the Tigers out of the dark days. And the good thing about Benji and Farah being in the coaching staff now is recruitment is going to be much easier. Benji and Farah sit you down and say, we want you at your club. This is the plan. Come with us. I tell you what, there are a lot more boys signing that contract to be with Farah and Benji than before where, you know, they may be a good coach or whatever, but Benji Marshall and Farah, like, Benji Marshall is one of the most loved players to ever play the game. So I like the plan. I hope my glass half full perspective is wrong, and I hope it's actually this is the moment we see the club turn around. If there is anyone that is up to doing something great like that, it's Farah and Benji. And also, you look at the Broncos, like, you know, Kevy Walters, like, ex-club legend. A lot of people thought that he couldn't coach, and I felt like when the decision was made, not that Kevy couldn't coach, but they were unsure whether he could coach. I was of the mind it's almost irrelevant whether he can or can't. It's what he brings back to the club in playing for the jersey. And have we not seen at the Broncos, tactically, all that kind of stuff, they're not doing anything tactically that different. They've just got 17 blokes that are fully committed to the cause. And that's all Benji and Farah need to get out of the boys is like 17 blokes fully committed to the cause. And they can do that. I'm excited. I'm excited for Benji. And I'm stoked for him. And Farah as well. I feel like they've landed back where they belong, which is with that club. Now, on to Sharkies versus Raiders. Storm versus Raiders. Is it the concern time for the Storm after losing little Pappy?
Yeah, it is. And even the loss to the might of the Raiders wasn't a massive concern. They just... like, Pappy's so important to them.
Oh, mate.
And it's not... like, Nick Meaney's been really good this year, who'll deputise at fullback, and he's a good goal kicker, and that's all fine. But Melbourne just don't seem to have the depth that they've had in other years. So they've really struggled over this Origin period to fill the gaps and fill the voids left by their Origin stars, whereas in other years, Scotty Drinkwater would step in or Nico Hines steps in, and they just had this Harry Grant would step in, the relentless lines of just gun talents kind of thing. They haven't had that anymore. So, you know, a bit of concern there, but Pappy, like, he takes them from being a very good team to being a superstar team.
Yeah.
So massive concern for them. And in terms of their title credentials, yeah, they can still win the comp, but God.
Yeah. Pappy offers something that no other player in the comp does. Like, his play style being the smaller, nippy fullback, only he can offer. Like, no one else is as quick through the middle as Pappy. You know, like, okay, does he have the tackle break ability of Tedesco? No. But I tell you what, that speed, when the Storm get a roll on and you need a lightning quick guy through that middle there, he's the only one that has the body shape that can offer that. I'm going to say it. Without Pappy, I am concerned about, and when I say I'm concerned, I mean they may have gone from a premiership threat to maybe not. I'm not. I need to see them next week because Nick Meaney is playing really fucking good, like really good footy. So I want to see Nick Meaney there first. But it's probably it's the first time all year where I've gone, ooh, maybe they aren't on the same footing as Panthers. Whereas, like, or even last week after they lost 2 in a row, I still had them on the same level as Panthers. There was concerns and, like, you know, like maybe, you know, they don't have the depth we thought, and maybe they've got some things to worry about. But I still thought once they get everyone back, they're on the same level as Panthers. After Pappy's gone down, I'm not sure that they are on the same level as Panthers at the moment. I need to see them with Nick Meaney, though. And if there is one club that proves all the doubters wrong constantly, it's the Melbourne Storm. What do you reckon, Matty?
I totally agree. Storm have been my premiership favourites since the start of this year, up until literally last week. Like I still had them just above Penrith, not like in form or anything, but like I just thought that the Storm do it every year. They start really strong, and then they just try and get through that Origin period. And then they kind of finish strong as well, which is kind of what they were doing. They've probably had a couple of lapses here and there, and as you've said all year, we've all said all year, they've been quite patchy. But perhaps going down, that was a real. I agree. I was like, fuck, this might not. They might not be premiership threats anymore. Of course, they can still win the premiership, but yeah, they're well under the Panthers are my new premiership favourites now, and the Storm have probably gone to like I can see them getting knocked out in a semi-final to the Sharks, for example. Like,
well, we'll put it this way: the only thing stopping us, well, me personally, I can't speak for you, is the Storm's history of proving us wrong. Yeah. If I was just to look at this year and like their jerseys were black and they had no logo on them and I didn't know who they were, I would be going, I think they may have a bit of issues here. They may not be a premiership threat. The only thing that's making me going, there's one club that continues to deny that continues to show you what is possible and what's not possible. It's the Storm. Like every time you think they're out of the fight, they come back bigger and stronger.
And one thing that makes me think that maybe they are still a reasonable, well, they definitely are a chance. They've become a more expansive attacking branded team in the last 2 to 3 years, as we know. Love using the ball, particularly over their own half. They've still got that gritty bash 'em DNA in them where they can win a game off the back of their defence, where they turn a preliminary final or a grand final into just a grind and they just find a way and they just lie all over the ruck, get away with it, and they can win a game. They don't have to score 30 points off the back of 4 or 5 bits of Pappy brilliance to win games. They can win a game 10-8 in a gritty preliminary final under pressure with blokes with experience if they want to.
Yep.
So maybe we just see them go a little bit more towards that style. But yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how they come out next weekend.
I tell you what, if they do win the premiership this year, I reckon it will go down as one of Bellamy's favourites just because of everything they've had to deal with this year, including like losing, like when they've lost Brandon Smith, Nico Hines, Dale Finucane, Kenny Bromwich, this is who's leaving. Kenny Bromwich, Jesse Bromwich, Kofusi. Like so much has happened to that club that it's usually so stable, I guess. But so it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. Now, Raiders. Are the Raiders back? Are they back, Timmy?
We've been back for about a month.
Oh, come on now. I want to get the tapes up. I said a month ago the Raiders have turned the ship, and I don't think you were with me, Timmy.
I wasn't completely convinced.
Are they back, mate?
Mate, the Storm are just our bunnies. 4 straight in Melbourne. We're the only team in the NRL with a positive record at Amy Park.
Yep.
I spoke about the Storm having their gritty style. This was a return to, and we've seen it at times in the last 4 to 6 weeks, the Raiders of sort of 2018, 19. There was nothing flamboyant or overly classy about what the Raiders did yesterday. They just gritted that one out. It was such a tough effort. All the boys showed up for each other. The Storm in that first half, you're sort of sitting there waiting for them to crack us, and we just somehow found a way. We scored a try off an intercept, a bit of absolute magic from James Schiller, and we found a way to get over the line. So it was a really pleasing performance as a fan just to see what they put together.
Yeah, you're totally right. That's the closest I've seen them play to their grand final season by a mile. Like they rocked up with a chip on their shoulder and a real disrespect for Storm. And I don't mean in a serious way where they don't like the Storm, but in a way of like, nah, fuck you. And that's what made them so great in 2019, where they were honestly a representation of Ricky Stewart as a player. Yeah. Like a real chip on your shoulder. We are not taking a backward step. And if you want to get down and dirty, we'll fucking get even more down and dirty. And I think they did that yesterday. Said, wherever you want to take it, Melbourne, we are fucking ready to go there. And they did. They went there. They went all day long. Their line speed was great. It wasn't just the first 20 minutes where their forwards was shooting out of line. It was all the way to the last minute where their forwards was shooting out of line. Sprinkle a bit on a bit of Schiller magic. Oh, what's going on there? What a try. Schiller with the little grubber down the sideline, gets it in just an inch before the try, gets up. What a incredible. Then he goes down with an injury. Poor bloke can't even celebrate it. Oh. What a try.
Everything was just perfect.
Inch perfect. Yeah. And
Crazy.
it just like it was his third game this year.
Yeah, something like 3 or 4.
Barely any games. That was amazing. He also had an incredible try saving bat down. Kenny Bromwich had a 2-on-1 and he threw the 2-on-1 and Schiller did amazing to bat it down. Then he goes up and scores the match winner. What a game from Schiller. What a game.
On top of all that, no Nick Kotrick, no Elliot Whitehead, no Corey Horsburgh. Blokes popping out all over the place in that side. So we've done it undermanned.
Yep. It's a great win by the Raiders. And I think that, okay, yes, 2019 Raiders aren't back, but a Raiders that can make a little bit of run and make a bit of noise in that 8, put it this way, I would not want to be playing Ricky's Raiders round 1 of the finals because you don't know what's going to...
Yeah.
Ricky is such a competitor. If he gets those boys fired up, you might get knocked out by an 8th place Raiders because they've got the team to do it. Their forward pack is super aggressive. We know what Jackie Whiten can do. Xavier Savage, although he didn't have... the crazy meters or whatever. I thought he did some mature stuff. Now, I still think he's a little bit away from, where he's going. Oh, he's definitely, as a youngster, he's going to be improved massively over the next few years. But I still do think we're still seeing some rookie stuff in his game. But I thought he was pretty good. I thought he made some mature decisions yesterday. Sebastian Chris was really good. That intercept wasn't an easy intercept at all. The catch was great. Tarpane, continues to be fucking amazing.
Yeah, so
honestly,
good.
He's so good. He's so dangerous constantly. It's like every time he gets the ball, they can't get him to the ground. Like, he must be super strong. It's crazy. Like, I wonder how much you're paying Tarpane on the open market.
Well, like, he's gone from being a very good NRL player to, like, almost the best prop in the game.
Yeah, form-wise.
It's really hard one because I'm not... If I was putting Ross together, I'm not spending big up front. So, I'd probably give him maybe 500. But on the form he's displaying, I could see why other people would give him a lot more.
If he's playing that year in, year out, I'm giving him probably 550 to 6.
And that's it. Can he keep up this form year in, year out?
Because he's fucking just so destructive. I thought Adam Elliott was really good. I think you're really going to miss Adam Elliott. Yeah. Like, some of the aggressive plays he makes is really good. I am still surprised. Ricky Stewart seems to just doesn't like Adam Elliott at 13 for some reason, which surprised me. I think it's easily his best position.
I think this one was probably a little bit more forced from the Elliot Whitehead out.
Yeah, okay.
So that's wanted an edge.
Okay, yep, we can see that. Hudson Young has probably been one of your most... outside of Tarpane, he's probably been one of your most consistent players all year. Look, great win. Great win for the club. Talk about a timely win just before heading into the serious end of the season. If Raiders can make the finals... I think Ricky deserves a massive rap. Like, yeah, okay, their roster is probably a top 4 roster, but I think it shows you how far Ricky has come as a coach because I feel like, go back 5-6 years, if all of the things happened at the Raiders, Ricky implodes the place. Like, he just goes nuclear. But I think that we saw, and again, I don't know the inner workings. I can only go off what's reported, but I think that there was a period there where it looked like he was losing the player group.
Yeah.
And I think Ricky... being more mature and a better coach, took a step back and realised, you know what, maybe I've got to bend a little bit before we break as a group. And I think that he put a bridge between them and said a little compromise maybe, and he got the playing... You know how hard it is to get the playing group back on side? Like, once they're gone, how many times have we seen clubs where it's as soon as the playing group goes, it's just all over? Like, no matter what the coach does, it's gone. Ricky has managed to pull everything back in, and they're playing for him. Like, they're playing for Ricky Stewart. I think he deserves a massive rap for hanging on and turning the boys around like the way he has.
Yeah. And that's it. Like, we saw Joe Tapney's a great example of that because we know there was a bit of conjecture around their relationship earlier on this season, at times last season. And you thought, where's this going to end up? Is Tapney going to stay at the club? There was a lot of issues around the Pommy boys, around the treatment of George Williams and a few blokes not happy there, Joshy Hodgson. And to get him up to where he has, and they're clearly playing for Ricky Stewart.
Absolutely.
It's all in the attitude.
Yeah.
And just the last one I wanted to touch on, a bloke that I don't know how he doesn't get picked in the NRL, but Corey Harawira-Naera.
Oh, mate.
He's absolutely a starting NRL player, let alone being like an X factor off the bench. The try he set up in the pass he threw for Schiller's first try, he does these things week in, week out. And, you know, I don't know, maybe at the very nitty-gritty of it, he's got a few defensive lapses or something, but I think he's a star.
Yeah, it's just the only issue that I've ever seen with Corey Harawira-Naera is just offensively he can have a few missed tackles. But I think that's a lot to do with how aggressive he is because he shoots out so much.
Yeah.
Look, as long as you're shooting outside in and not inside out, as long as you're making sure that the defensive player gets pushed back in and doesn't get on the outside of you, sometimes I don't mind a player shooting out because it stops the play and then the defence can swarm. But I believe you. I agree with you. Corey Harawira-Naera, when he's on, is fucking super impressive. Look, Raiders fans, get excited. I think that you might be building into something nicely here. Who knows? Who knows where the season could end? You just got to get yourself in the 8. And as I said, I would not want to play Ricky Stewart's Raiders in week 1 of the finals because they could literally knock anyone off. That's how good this squad is if they're all playing well together. Yeah, well done, Ricky's Raiders. Now, last game of the round, the Latrell Mitchell show. Holy shit. 3 try assists, a try, 12 tackle breaks, 1 line break, 3 line break assists, 3 offloads, 2 tackles. I mean, that try he scored was a joke. He bumped and palmed 2 Origin players in one play. Just amazing. He's just... I sometimes feel like people forget what Latrell Mitchell can actually do, and he just has to remind everyone, oi, there's a reason why I am literally one of the best talents to ever play the game. Incredible performance by Latrell Mitchell.
It's funny, my KO froze as the offload was thrown, and it was the in shot, and Latrell was about to get the ball, and I looked at Courtney, and I'm like, do you reckon Latrell will steam onto this? And they're like, because they're like 30, 40 minutes out. Like, it didn't go back on for a good 40 seconds, and we're like, fuck, imagine if he scored, like, in jest. Absolutely in jest. Yeah. Imagine if he scored. And then we came back on and the house was celebrating. I'm like, oh, I wonder what happened. I literally thought it must have been, like, the next tackle.
Yeah.
And then I just watched that replay. I was so spewing I didn't get to see it live, but, oh, what a freak.
What a fucking
It had vibes of, very reminiscent of, and not as good, but Tommy Turbo against the Cowboys last year, that freak solo try. Jared Hayne against the Dragons, his one. Just these fullbacks that are just on another level where they just can't be tackled.
Yeah.
It wasn't as good as those, but I got similar vibes.
Mate, absolutely. It was just... And just when it was in... Like, the amount of games Latrell Mitchell has been a part of and they need something big from his team and he just goes, boom, give me the ball, and he does it. There's very few players. The only other player that I've personally watched that does that and has done it more than him is Greg Inglis. Like, Greg Inglis used to do this year on year at Origin all the time. You need something big to happen, Greg Inglis makes it happen. Latrell Mitchell, the amount of times that the Rabbitohs and the Roosters, like, I know they lost Cooper Cronk the same year they lost Latrell Mitchell, but I still believe that the loss of Latrell Mitchell was much bigger than people give credit for. The amount of games that he won for the Roosters, like the grand final, that flick pass was Latrell Mitchell, but it doesn't really get spoken about that much because it's just we're so used to it. But like games on the line in a grand final, you know, everyone else takes the tackle and just completes the sets and gets pressure. He just goes, boom, flick pass out the back. Like, incredible. Field goals, whatever you want. He's just a beast. Trell Mitt, absolute beast.
I cop the whole first 2 hours of Maroon shit, and then you bring up the 2018 grand final. Like, just dagger after dagger.
Fuck, I didn't even think of that. Sorry, bro.
All good, mate.
Look, I actually feel sorry for the Dogs in the sense that I thought they played bloody really well. I think the Dogs have turned a corner. I really do. They look so much better as an outfit. Mick Potter, whatever he's doing, I think you give him another year. Give him another year.
Definitely.
Like, they're scoring a bunch of points. They're looking dangerous. The Rabbitohs, yeah, they kicked out towards the end there, but for most of that game, it was in the balance. I think the Bulldogs played outstanding. But just quickly on the Rabbitohs, Totola was outstanding. One of the best games I've seen Totola ever play. Keon as well. He was really good. Yeah, look, the Rabbitohs, I don't know whether it was like, it's hard to say because the Bulldogs have improved so much. Whether, like, if that was the score against the old Bulldogs, I would say it's a bit concerning for the Rabbitohs that they let that in. But I think the new Bulldogs really are a genuine, like, at least a threat to the top 8. Like if the Bulldogs were to start their season now with the way they're playing right now, I reckon they'd be floating around that 9, 10, 11 mark. I really do. I think they're playing some good footy. But yeah, Rabbitohs get the win. I think in that 8, 9, 10 area, they're going to make it really hard for some teams to squeeze in. I think they probably... Fuck, just looking at the ladder now. So you've got Rabbitohs at 7. You've got Sea Eagles at 8. So, like, Roosters are out of the 8 right now. Far out. That 8 spot. So Roosters are... Sorry. Rabbitohs are on 22 points. There is a world... Fuck, the Rabbitohs are 1 win off the top 4.
Yeah. It's so tight.
Look, I'm not sure how the rest of the year will unfold, but I think Demetrio deserves a massive rap because they might be in that. Like, they could go on a run here and
2 wins off second place.
That's incredible.
Their draw is horrific.
Is it tough?
It's as hard as it gets.
Big test this week against Melbourne and then the Sharkies. Then we got the Warriors, Eels, Panthers, Cowboys, Roosters.
Fuck.
It's not easy.
That is not good. That is not good. But look, they've put themselves in a position. That's all that can matter. They've won 3 on the trot now since that Dragons loss. Yeah, they look good. Latrell Mitchell clearly has breathed life back into that side. Now, doggies. Thoughts, Timmy?
So just had this moment sort of midway through the first half where I just had confidence in the Dogs to defend their line and that they looked threatening and attack. And I was like, 2 months ago, you'd be going into a game going, be surprised if they can put 2 tries on the board.
Yeah.
You know, they'd be defending their line. It'd be like pick and choose who you want to score against them. And all of a sudden, that has just completely changed under Mick Potter. He deserves so much credit on what he's done to that club because it could have gone either way. And they've got up for Potter. They've got up for their fans. They're playing some terrific footy. We've spoken about it most weeks, but just getting some time together in that spine of Flano and Burton, Burton was in everything good the Doggies did in that game. I'm so stoked for the Doggies fans because, as I said, they're becoming a good team to watch each week.
Reed Marnie. Billy Army kick out coming next year. I think Jerry Marshall King is going to be a great buy for Dolphins. Yeah. I think he's improved so much. I want to give a shout out to Declan Casey. He had an absolute Barry Crocker last week. Like, when you talk about tough gigs, everything went wrong last week for him. This week, he was fantastic. He had a couple of line breaks, a try, 161 metres, 34 post contact, 2 tackle breaks, 14 tackles, only 1 miss. He missed the least tackles out of all the backs in his team.
And most importantly, he played with so much confidence. And
exactly.
He had every right to be a shell of a human after last time.
Fuck. 100%. The mental fortitude to be able to bounce back that quickly. And also, fair play to Mick Potter. To play him again after that, a lot of coaches would have said, oh, mate, you are not ready for first grade. To play him after that, it just shows you that Mick Potter knows how to build relationships with his players. They're playing for him. I think they'd be crazy not to give him another year. Crazy. And also, from a selfish perspective from the Doggies, you give Potter another year, that gives you an extra year to build a roster. So if you do want to go after Ciraldo, if Potter doesn't work out, you've got that roster there to give to him. But I think Potter absolutely deserves a crack. When you look what's out there, I think he deserves a crack.
Well, that's it. We've spoken about how scarce the market is for quality coaches at the moment. Who's going to come and do better than what he's done the last 2 months?
Yeah, it's so good. Outside of that, yeah, Doggies. Great game. Carraz, one of my favourites, rips and tears again, 148 metres, 3 tackle breaks, 3 offloads. Averillo looks like he's getting more confident each week at the back. Just a few defensive misses that maybe could pick up a little bit, but Paul Vaughan, another 127 metres. Yeah, look, I think also Flanagan deserves a rap because he had 3 try assists on the weekend.
It was fantastic.
And you know what it is? It's about confidence. He's finally been given, some games on the trot and a coach that is I'm sticking with you and Burton. And it is no surprise that their attack has completely unlocked because they finally can play some footy together. Of course they're going to go all right. Think about how frustrated you would be with Kyle Flanagan. This has been sitting in his game for the last couple of years, but he just hasn't been given an opportunity. Been just like refused to be given an opportunity. Finally, Potter backs him and says, "You're our man." 3 try assists against the Rabbitohs. 3 try assists. Really great stuff. So congratulations, Flanagan. And again, massive raps to Flanagan. You know, very easy for him to never be able to get his confidence back after everything he's been through. I mean, this poor bloke was in tears in interviews, like breaking up because it was so much pressure, and he turns it around. And him and Burton look like definitely look like a combination that are good enough to challenge for the 8.
Yeah.
Like I truly believe that the Doggies team next year, I don't know whether they will, but on paper and what I've seen this year, I believe that they can challenge for the top 8. Will they make it? I'm not sure. But as I said, if they started the year right now, I honestly would have them. I'd have them around where the Dragons are. So what's that? 8 wins. I can see them getting 8 wins so far in the season if they started the year like this. So, yeah, exciting times for the Doggies. Exciting times. That is us, done and dusted. A mammoth episode. Thank you all for listening. As usual, grab a case of Bloke in a bar. Go to our stock. We got a stockist on our website. You just put in your postcode. It will show you near a stockist. Also, Bloke hoodies dropping Wednesday, 6 p.m. Hoodies and trackies and beanies. Limited amount. This is our last winter drop for a very long time. Make sure to set your alarm. Go to scplaybook.com.au for the new stats all set up. Anything else got going on?
Just a podcast with brother Sam, ex-Raider, Sammy Williams. So they're just doing a bit of punting and fantastic footy mind, Sammy. He's not one of the biggest or fastest blokes going around, so to get over 100 NRL games off the back of that. Yeah, so I started up one with him of a Thursday morning previewing the weekend, and basically as much about getting a few tips out there for punters, it's just about sharing his thoughts on footy because he knows his stuff.
Yeah, good. And what's that called? SC Playbook?
The Half-Backed podcast.
The Half-Backed.
Under the SC Playbook banner.
Under the SC. So you just go to the SC Playbook, subscribe, and you'll come up on your feed every Thursday morning. Thanks for joining us, but as usual, I'll go and fuck myself. Thank you.